Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our millions of listeners around the world, but also to welcome to the programme today 4 clever and talented performers who are going to display their skill with words and language as they try and talk with humorous ingenuity on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those 4 are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, a very talented comedian and writer, and that is Janey Godley and Marcus Brigstocke. Please welcome all 4 of them. Seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score and blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from one of the venues, one of the largest venues at the Pleasance, which is on the Festival Fringe up here in Edinburgh. And we have a wonderful, enthusiastic Fringe audience to cheer us on our way as we start the show with Clement Freud. The subject to begin with is 5-star review. Oh, very important up here in Edinburgh. Tell us something about the subject, starting now.
I'm never quite sure how many stars there should be. I stayed at a 6-star hotel and said to the manager I thought 5 was the absolute limit, and he said we got the extra star because we polish people's sunglasses on the beach. And 5-star reviews at the Edinburgh Festival, where we are currently doing Just a Minute for the 19th year, and I wasn't that young when we began in 1847, is a great pleasure, and it's full of Scotch people who don't like to be called...
Janey, you challenged.
Did he just call us Scotch people?
That's right. Right, you're quite right, Janey. And there are all the Scots in the audience clapping here. There's only one thing that's Scotch, and that's whiskey.
I'm in the middle of a sentence.
Yes.
So what's your challenge, darling?
That he said Scotch, and I think that's not really... Is it not really a good challenge to pull him up in Scotch?
Not good.
No, not
Am I allowed to arm wrestle him over it?
No, because you would win, darling.
Okay.
No, I mean, he was referring to people and Scots people when he said Scotch. So I give you the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, you've got a correct challenge, and you take over the subject with 23 seconds on 5-star review starting now.
I have had a 5-star review. It did cost me quite a lot of money, and it also took up a lot of my time, and I never...
Oh, Marcus challenge.
Sorry, it's a repetition of a lot.
There was too much
Was there a lot?
A lot of a lot.
It's because I've had a lot of 5-star reviews.
So, Marcus, you've gone in there, and there are 18 seconds still available. 5-star review starting now.
I will never forget how excited I was when I got my first 5-star review. I achieved this by adding together the reviews of 3 newspapers.
Right, Clement, you challenged.
I thought he said review.
No, he said reviews the second time, and the review is on the card.
Is it?
Yes.
It's you having the card.
Yes, I was having the card, yes. And I hate to remind you, Clement, because, you know, you have been playing for 40 years, but actually you can repeat the whole phrase or the words individually.
Like in Just a Minute.
In Just a Minute, that's right, yes. But it's lovely to review the way we can play the game. So as an incorrect challenge, Marcus, and there's 10 seconds still available, 5-star review starting now.
Most of the posters slapped up on the walls all over this fair city have got 5-star reviews on them, but many, of course, are written by the performer's mother or father. My own...
So Marcus Brigstocke was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now taken a strong lead ahead of Paul Merton, Clement Freud and Janey Godley in that order. Janey, will you take the next round? The subject, a nice Scottish subject for you, hen, a sporran. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
A sporran is basically a dead cat that's been bashed flat and possibly sat and then stuck on the front of a kilt. Many Americans try and catch a sporran but end up just getting the cold. You can't really find the sporran anywhere other than up an alley that has a sign saying Sporran Alley. Oh, I interrupted myself. I
it's a
heckled
tough-
myself. How mad is
I
that?
know. You've only played it once beforehand, but you're doing very well, don't worry. But Clement's played a lot. He spotted this,
he knows a
it's
lot
a
about
repetition,
Scotch.
wasn't it? Right, Clement,
Janey.
you have the subject, 42 seconds, a sporran starting now.
Scottish people who come from Scotland quite often wear sporrans, but Scotch people are those who drink not gin or rum or vodka, but a whiskey, spelt W-H-I-S-K-Y, the E being reserved for Irish, similar.
Paul, you challenge first.
Slight hesitation.
There
Yeah.
was indeed, yes. Couldn't wriggle out of it any other way, but it was delightful. 19 seconds are still available. A sporran with you, Paul, starting now.
Well, it's one of the great delicacies here at the Edinburgh Fringe, particularly stuffed full of crab meat or cheese on the outside, and then deeply fried in a huge vat of oil, and served up with chips and all kinds of other potato varieties, such as sautéed. Oh, that's a lovely way to prepare a dish, isn't it? And when you sit down with a sporran in your hand, you think to yourself,
I should explain to our listeners abroad, and we have a great deal of them, please don't go into a restaurant up here and ask for fried sporran.
no, do.
But anyway, Paul Merton was speaking then as the whistle went gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's moving up on Marcus. Brigstocke is in the lead. And Marcus, it's your turn to begin. Ging, Goolie is the subject. Can you tell us something about it in this game, starting now?
Ging is not, as many people think, a nasty cycling accident where you fail to lift your leg high enough to get over the saddle. It is a song enjoyed by scouts sitting round a campfire, the campness of...
Paul challenge.
Do they really enjoy it? I think they're made to sing it. I think it's deviation. I don't think they enjoy singing it at all.
Well, they look as if they're enjoying it.
Oh,
'cause
yes, but
haven't
that's
you
just
seen,
pressure.
you know, Ralph Reeder's...
That's peer pressure, that is.
Scouts look as if they're enjoying a lot of things they don't really like,
No,
though,
it's
Nicholas.
true.
Ralph Reeder really used to whip them up into a frenzy when he started the Boy Scout movement.
Yes.
It was
he
the
didn't
word
start it.
whip that
Baden
frightened
Powell
us there,
started
wasn't
it, but Ralph Reeder used to run the gang show.
Yes, back in the 1940s.
Yes, before you were around, Paul. Right. But you knew about it.
Yes.
You're looking at me as you said you were one of them, weren't you? No, it
Yeah.
wasn't. Right.
Were you too old? Too old. Didn't let me-
You were interrupted, Marcus.
Yes.
So you get a point for that.
Right.
And you have 45 seconds on Ging, Goolie starting now.
I was not a member of any of Baden Powell's youth adventure groups. I was in the Goths.
Paul challenge.
Well, it was a hesitation.
There wasn't
it was.
a
And
definite...
as he's not a member of this troop, he's saying they were enjoying it. He doesn't know. I thought he had inside information, and he tells he's got nothing to do with it. I feel cheated.
It doesn't matter if you know nothing about the subject, Paul. You know yourself. You have to keep going with it
Yeah.
and do your best. And you bluffed as you did with the sporran. Very well. 39 seconds. Ging, Goolie, Paul, starting now.
Ging, gang, goolie, goolie, goolie.
Clement challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
Goody, goody, goody.
That's right.
It's on the card.
I know it
Five
is.
times.
It's not 5 times on the card. Ging, gang, goolie's on the card.
Yes, and you did. You only repeated it twice. Ging,
Yeah.
Goolie.
Yeah.
So that's 4.
I'd have repeated it more if you let it go on a bit more.
And no, what did I? So incorrect challenge actually. 37 seconds still available. Ging, Goolie, starting now.
3 of the finest Indian cricketers of a generation. Unfortunately, Goolie was the only one that played for the full team. Ging and Gan were keen competitors and would practice their off-spin bowling round the back of the Tesco's delicatessen lockers.
Marcus challenge.
Texaco don't have a delicatessen, so...
Tesco.
Yes.
Oh, did I say Texaco?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, did I?
Texaco, yes.
I am being sponsored by Texaco.
Marcus, we're still with you. Ging, Goolie. 17 seconds, starting now.
I'm thrilled that the subject's come back to me because I've got lots more to say about it. Chiefly this, that when I was in the Goths, a youth group that was a lot of fun, we didn't get badges.
Clement challenge.
He said group before.
You said
Oh,
group
yes,
before.
I have,
That's right,
yes,
yes. So,
yes.
Clement, you have the subject now. You have 7 seconds. Ging, Goolie, starting now.
I think most people know that Ging, Goolie is not an anagram of kleptomania, and yet it is pretty important.
Clement Freud was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's in third place behind Paul Merton, who's just behind Marcus Brigstocke, who's still in lead. Janey's trailing a little. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is naming names. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
When a child is born, it is truly a miracle of birth. And we look down at that poor, sweet children.
Marcus, yes.
Repetition of child.
Yes, you were listening well.
dreadful.
Yes. 52 seconds are still available, Marcus. Tell us something about naming names, starting now.
I think one of the hardest things about naming names is that a name by its nature has already been named. However, in the Cash for Honours crisis, there were...
Janey
There
challenge.
was a wee bit of a hesitation.
There was.
Where was the wee hesitation?
He did, and that in Scotland is definitely a hesitation. Sorry, Mark.
No, it's fine.
I'd give you the benefit of the doubt, Janey, because you're fairly new to the game, and I think you are very good, and therefore you want naming names in 43 seconds, starting now.
Naming names in Scotland is when you're called a grass, and many people have been a naming names type person, and we get there eventually. Naming names is a hard thing. When my daughter was born, I decided to call her Ashley. I couldn't think of what to say about...
Clement, you challenge.
Hesitation.
That was a hesitation, yes. 26 seconds, Clement. Naming names, starting now.
What people tend to say on this subject is I'm not naming names.
Marcus challenged.
Yes, on deviation, I've just had the subject and I didn't tend to say that at all.
You did have the subject. You didn't say that.
No.
But Clement has decided that he can say that. And within the rules of just a minute, he can say that.
Oh, yes, no, but Sir Clement said that...
I specifically
Yes.
did not mean you.
Oh! You mean ordinary people?
When I said...
Yes. I'm so sorry, I misunderstood.
So, Clement, you have another point. You have the subject, 21 seconds, naming names, starting now.
So here are a few names that I would not be naming. Lloyd George, Baldwin, Macmillan, Balfour, Churchill, Wilson, Callaghan, Thatcher.
Paul challenged.
Repetition of zoological gardens.
Paul,
Yes.
please. Yes. No, I think I give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. But he wasn't actually deviating from the subject of naming names, going a bit slow, but there are
Could
still...
I have a bonus point for not saying how old you are?
I don't mind if you say it or not.
Oh, good.
Right.
Can I get a bonus point for saying how sexy you are?
Darling, you can have 2 bonus points for that.
That's how you do it, Clement.
Right. Clement, it was an incorrect challenge, so you still have the subject and the 7 seconds on naming names starting now.
There are several books in the Bible which spend much time naming names. Leviticus is one of them. Abraham.
So, Clement Freud was again speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He has leapt forward, and he's equal with Paul in second place, and they're trailing Marcus Brigstocke by 3 points, and they're all just ahead of Janey Godley. But Clement, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now is on and off. 60 seconds, starting now.
Georgy Onondaff, as he liked to be called, was an angry young Soviet playwright whom you might remember wrote a 3-acter on the strike undertaken by the librarians in Essex. And it was called Book Blank in Ongar.
Janey, you challenge.
I have no idea what he's actually talking about. So I'm going to take that as deviation.
Deviation, yes, from on and off.
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't any idea what he's talking about either.
I thought it was just
Did
me and
anybody in the
everybody
audience
was
have any
getting it.
idea what he's talking about? So there must be deviation.
Paul did.
So Janey has the benefit of the doubt, Clement.
Have you not heard of Onondaff?
Well, we have now. Hadn't heard of it before.
Really? He was a playwright.
He wrote a play called This and That.
Listen to this. And Janey, you have the subject. It's on and off, and there are 39 seconds starting now.
On and Off is a new pop group that consists of 3 men, 2 children, and a dancing dog. They often do a lot of singing outside in the streets, and people run away from them and shout, "On and Off is back on!" And people don't like that, and they look at them and think, do they have flyers? Please don't hit me with any pieces of paper. On and Off are going to be the biggest next hit in Britain. You should see them. Come along. They have lollipops and sticks, and they sing on and off, on and off, on and...
Paul, you've challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, slightly. There
Of on
was,
and off.
wasn't there?
I know,
Yes.
It's on the card, I know.
She's on the card. And
But she was obviously singing a song which was going to carry on like that forever.
No!
You've
How
still...
does the chorus go?
Up and down.
Oh, wait a minute, love. You've still got 9 seconds, on and off, starting now, Janey.
They sing in the streets, they laugh.
Oh, dear,
I think we had Sing before.
You had Sing and the street before.
Yeah,
didn't
but I like being interrupted. It's my favourite thing. It's a kind of an on and off thing.
you? Right.
You must be ecstatic the way this is going.
Yes.
Paul, a correct challenge. 7 seconds, on and off, with you, starting now.
Global warming is something we can all tackle if we learn to switch off our central heating. It's no good just putting it on in the morning thinking that's good enough. Oh, no!
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's now 1 point behind Marcus Brigstocke, who's in the lead, and he's 2 ahead of Clement Freud and 3 or 4 ahead of Janey Godley. And Janey, we'd like you to take the next round, and the subject is ear, nose, and throat. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
I have ears, nose and a throat, and all are affected at the Edinburgh Fringe. You get the lurgy in every venue. The smell, the bacteria, makes you sniffle, slurk, and you can't properly hear.
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, it's a possible deviation, but I've never heard the word sliach before.
But you see, I know Glasgow well because I lived there for many years, and I mean, there's all kinds of Glaswegian words.
Slurk is an
slurk is.
official
We always.
You're too posh to get it, that's it.
Yes. Does it have a meaning at all?
Yes. if you slurk, it's a wee thing worse than actually slurping.
Yeah. It's a thing at the back of your throat. I'll teach you.
Sometimes when you challenge in just a minute, you get a lot more than you bargained for.
Give Marcus a bonus point for his contribution. Jamie gets a point because she was interrupted incorrectly, and she still has a subject, and 48 seconds, ear, nose and throat, Janey, starting now.
Smelly things go up your nose, and that's what I really love about the Edinburgh Fringe. There is a host of different scents that wander around every single street that you encounter. Clowns have got a certain odour that you can avoid if you stick a big clown nose on your...
Right. Marcus, you challenged.
Yeah, repetition
Clown.
of clown.
Yes, clown, yes,
Yeah.
right. And there are 30 seconds still available, Marcus. Tell us something about ear, nose and throat, starting now.
When I was a young man, I always had infected sinuses, which meant that snot dribbled all down my face and mingled with the marmite that I had failed to fit into my mouth effectively, making a sort of horrible greeny brown pulp that gathered in the corners of my...
Oh, yes, Clement challenged.
Repetition of symptoms.
There was a repetition of symptoms, but he didn't repeat the word symptoms. He had all these ghastly symptoms, and we were cringing. The look on my face was enough to get the audience walking out of the theatre. But no, so he didn't actually repeat symptoms. So the subject, Marcus, is still with you, ear, nose and throat, and you have 13 seconds starting now.
I was a popular child, much loved for my very colourful face that always had such interesting shades.
Paul challenge.
Well, we've had an awful lot of nose. I think we'd all agreed on that. But we've had very little on ear and throat. So deviation.
Ear, nose.
Yes.
We've had no ear or throat at all. We've had nose, but no ear or throat.
Gosh, what a difficult decision to
Yeah,
make.
well, make the
This-
decision and give it to me.
well,
There's been no mention.
well, I mean, nose is on the card. He was talking about the nose.
Yeah, but not ear and throat.
Not ears and throat, no, but...
I was about to move on to the streams of wax that poured down the sides of my neck.
Well,
but
maybe I've done us all a favour. We're not doctors, we don't have to listen
No,
to this.
because I think within the rules of just a minute he wasn't strictly deviating from the... Yes, because nose is on the card, and he was talking about that aspect of the subject, and I think he's entitled to have the benefit of the doubt. He keeps going 6 seconds, ear, nose and throat markers starting now.
Corks are what my mother used in the end, in my ears and nose, throat, and...
And Paul challenge.
She couldn't have put corks down your throat, surely. Did she like you?
Not much.
No, was she? Fair enough, I withdraw my challenge.
No, that's all right.
I bet she did put corks down
He
his
had the benefit of the doubt last time, and
he?
I believe that he did convey there were corks in his ears and his throat.
He did, didn't he?
Yes, that's
You were
right.
listening, weren't you?
I was...
He was listening.
Don't laugh.
Don't stop him, it's taken him half an hour to get him to this point.
So, Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, because I gave it to Marcus before. You have 2 seconds, ear, nose and throat, starting now.
Ear, nose and throat, whichever way you say it, it's still throat, nose and ear.
So, Paul Merton was speaking then as the whistle went, and he gained that extra point for doing so. He's moved forward. He's still behind Marcus Brigstocke, who's 3 ahead of him, and he's 4 ahead of Clement, and 5 or 6 ahead of Janey. And the next round, Marcus, it's your turn actually to begin, and the subject we'd like you to start with is the law of diminishing returns. A bit of a pompous subject to start with, but see what you can make of it starting now.
I think one of the best ways to define the law of diminishing returns is by referring to snot and marmite and earwax. And it just goes to show that an audience can quickly tire of mucus in its various forms and how it dribbles down a child's face. However, other means of defining...
Paul, yes.
Well, when he's not talking about his nose, he doesn't know what to talk about.
No.
Hesitation. He's got
I'm
one
glad-
anecdote about his streaming nose.
I'm glad you challenged, actually.
Yeah, I'm
because
glad I'm challenged as well.
It was
Stuck on the
getting a bit
stocking.
disgusting. It really was.
Yeah.
The images you were throwing up. I mean, this audience were in a state. Right. Paul, you have the subject. You have 42 seconds. The law of diminishing returns starting now.
The last time I came out of the clap clinic, I thought to myself, I'm not going back there again. That's the law of diminishing returns. It's doing the same thing and then thinking to yourself, well, was it really as good as last time? Look at just a minute. It's been going since 1927, and the old...
Clement challenged.
67.
Really?
It may just seem like 1927 to you, Paul.
Wasn't Lord Haw-Haw the original chairman?
But yes, Clement's right. It started in 1967.
And Nick
this is-
and I went in, we weren't that young.
No.
But not that young now. Anyway, Clement, you have the subject. You have the law of diminishing returns. You have 27 seconds starting now.
The one thing the diminishing returns don't seem to get to are the solicitors who charge ever more and increasing sums of money. Some of my best friends are in the law of diminishing returns, and I never see them. They don't come back.
Right. Marcus, you challenge.
Yes, a bit of hesitation.
A bit of a hesitation. More of a full stop, I think, yeah. You don't
I was giving Sir Clement the benefit of the doubt on the basis that he said some of his friends were in law, and that is a horrifying thought for anyone.
Anyway, Marcus, correct challenge. 7 seconds still available. The law of diminishing returns starting now.
Anyone who has invested their entire family fortune in inflatable budgerigars will know a huge amount about the law of diminishing returns.
Right, so Marcus Brigstocke was speaking as whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's increased his lead slightly at the end of that round. So, and I see we're moving into the final round. Oh, you are lovely. Right, so you'd like to know the scores, we do that. Janey, who's only played the game once before, and is shining magnificently, but she's in a 4th place. She's in a very strong 4th place. A brilliant fourth place, and she's just behind Clement Freud, who's 4 points behind Paul Merton, and he's a point or 2 behind Marcus Brigstocke, who's in the lead as we go into the final round. And Paul, is back with you to begin, and the subject is your mum. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
My mother, when she listens to this programme every Monday when it goes out and then it's lights out, she has to...
Clement challenged.
Repetition of out.
Yes, it was out. when he goes out and lights out.
Yeah.
So, Clement, you have the correct challenge, the subject, and 54 seconds, your mum starting now.
I always used to think my friends at school had better mums than I had. Your mum, I would propose, is nicer than mine. And my mother heard this and was extremely unimpressed. She hit me.
Marcus, you challenged.
Yes, there was, before the tragedy of Clement's childhood, there was...
They don't hit you straight away. I mean, they do.
Yes.
No, you saved us from the tragedy. And, Marcus, you take the subject with 37 seconds, your mum starting now.
Children use your mum as an insult on each other. In fact, at a bus stop, I heard some youths saying that one of them had seen the other's mother going to the chip shop in her slippers for the third time that week. And the child looked sufficiently chastened, but immediately came back with, your mum's so hairy she looks like she's got Bob Marley in a headlock, which I felt was rather extreme, given that he clearly hadn't met the other child's mum.
And, Janey, you challenged.
Child repetition.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. And,
Like a Catholic family.
And there are 11 seconds. 11 seconds still available, Janey, on your mum starting now.
My mum was called Annie. She could dance like Judy Garland and sing like a budgie with a really bad throat. Her hair was dark, her legs were long, and she could carry along a song and never once let me down. Yes!
So, Janey Godley, our Scottish representative on the show up here in Edinburgh, was speaking then when the whistle went. Gained that extra point for doing so. And let me tell you, she's finished in a magnificent 4th place. No. It's the points you get and the contribution is so important. She was only just behind Clement Freud, and it was a fine 3rd place, and he was a point or 2 behind Paul Merton in an excellent 2nd place. But just out ahead of them all was Marcus Brigstocke. So we say, Marcus, this week, you are our winner. Thank you. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game: Paul Merton, Clement Freud, Janey Godley, and Marcus Brigstocke. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle with such aplomb. We thank our producer, Talusha Galani. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're also grateful to this lovely audience here at the Pleasance on the Festival Fringe 2007, who've cheered us on our way. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, thank you, and tune in the next time we play Just a Minute! Yeah! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners all around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 distinctive and diverse personalities who are going to play Just a Minute. Seated on my right, we're delighted to welcome back that outstanding player of the game, Paul Merton, and seated beside him, someone who hasn't played the game for quite a while. It's lovely to have Maureen Lipman with us, and seated on my left is Pam Ayres, that lovely poetess or poet. I don't know which you like, the masculine or the feminine. And beside him, that...
I am a woman, Nicholas.
I know, but actors, whether male or female, like to be called actors.
I know, but I'm not at all militant about these things.
I'm delighted, because I know you've got a strong right arm as well, my love. And seated also beside Pam, the escapee from the Now Show, it's Marcus Brigstocke. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute has come from the Hay Festival in Hay-on-Wye, and we have a delightful, very wet audience in front of us here who are come to cheer us on our way as we begin the show with Paul Merton. Paul, the subject here in front of me is Timbuktu. Tell us something about Timbuktu in this game, starting now.
I understand that Timbuktu is twinned with Hay-on-Wye. In that case, it must be a very wet place indeed. I've not been here before, and I understand it's not always like this, but as we look
Marcus, you've challenged.
Repetition of I understand.
Yes.
Yes.
This is what you're supposed to do. Paul, I'm very, very sorry.
You weren't to know.
Yes, all right. Marcus, a correct challenge. Yes, so you get a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject of Timbuktu, and there are 49 seconds available starting now.
Interestingly, I was at school with a boy called Tim Buck, and whenever we used to go somewhere, people would say, "Bring Tim Buck too," and we did, but we never had the opportunity to visit.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of Tim Buck.
Yes. Well, listen,
all right,
Paul,
you want to know.
You know how to play the game. Right. So you got the subject back, Paul. You got a correct challenge there. Point for that. Timbuktu is back with you, and 38 seconds available, starting now.
I remember the last time I was in Timbuktu. As I walked along the high street, I noticed the mountains in the distance, and I thought to myself, one day I will climb those edifices. And I did.
Pam challenge.
It's very flat.
Is it? What was I looking at then?
Pam is right. It's all desert.
Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
I might be mixing up with Reigate.
There aren't many mountains there either.
Well,
it's just the South Downs.
It means belly button, doesn't it?
Does it?
Is it?
Yeah.
What, Reigate?
What does?
Buck too.
No.
French for belly button.
Pam, I agree with you. Mali is a very flat desert nation. And 26 seconds starting now.
I always used to hate the expression Timbuktu because if I had lost something and asked my mother where it was, she would say somewhat impatiently, "For all I know, it's gone to Timbuktu." And then you'd feel somewhat crestfallen because you were assured that...
Maureen challenged.
Repetition of because?
Yes, you
Okay.
did say because twice. So we've all spoken on this round. That's great. Maureen, you're in on the subject of Timbuktu.
Well,
8
I'm not
seconds
to know,
available,
am I?
starting now.
Timbuktu is a place in the world, and it's What?
Maureen, I think they enjoyed that so much, I'm going to give you a bonus point. But, Marcus, you challenged first.
Yes,
Why did
a
you
sort
challenge
of mixture of hesitation and repetition.
Well, I think just be generous and give her one, a hesitation.
Okay, yes.
Right, Marcus, you've got in with 4 seconds to go. Timbuktu starting now.
Timbuktu has become euphemistic for things and places...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Marcus Brigstocke. So Marcus and Maureen have both got 2 points, and Pam and Paul have both got 1 point. So you can work out what the situation is. Maureen, will you start the next round? The subject is a war of words. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
A war of words is generally a battle between two protagonists, like of the literary variety, often with people like, say, A.A. Gill, so good they named him
Pam
twice.
challenged.
I'm afraid it was a repetition of like.
Yes, a like. You did say like twice, I'm afraid.
Well, I haven't played it for a long time.
I know you have.
Give us a point, Nicholas.
Right. I've given you one bonus. I'll
Okay.
find another one later on, darling. Don't worry. I think you're lovely anyway. And so are you, Pam. I've said that before, but anyway.
They've finally got two women on the panel of the right age for Nicholas.
Combined,
You mean
perhaps.
Marcus and... You mean Marcus is too young for me, is he? Right. You're seeing a different side to me, are you, Paul?
Yes.
You look at me like that.
One I remember
should
with some
explain
bitterness.
That bit. 52 seconds, Pam. A war of words starting now.
The quotation which I just enunciated must be a great consolation to the likes of A.A. Gill.
Paul, yes, we know the challenge.
Repetition of A.
Oh, you what? That's not fair.
No, it isn't. It's part of the rules of Just a Minute, and it always gets a laugh. Right, so... Paul, you have the subject. There's 40 seconds available. A war of words starting now.
So named because his real name's our Automobile Association. I was recently walking down the street in Timbuktu when I suddenly thought to myself, where have all the mountains gone? This used to be a place where you could climb great peaks, but now it's as flat as anything. If you look...
A Pam challenge.
Deviation. He's talking about Timbuktu and we've moved on.
Some of us have moved on, some of us are still seeking closure.
I think Paul deserves a bonus point for that last remark of his.
Yeah, it was very
But Pam,
close.
you had a correct challenge, so you get a point for that. And you have 25 seconds back with you. A war of words starting now.
A war of words never hurts anyone because words can be soft and gentle and caress people. I'm really floundering here, as you can tell.
Maureen challenge.
People, people.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, people.
Yes,
Well,
I was
listen, Maureen.
floundering there.
Right, take a deep breath, Maureen. A war of words, and you have 17 seconds starting now.
Between people like A, which is followed by another alphabetical... I just can't get the bile about A.A. Gill, and I so want to.
Marcus, you challenged first. What was it?
It was a hesitation.
Yes, indeed. 12
Senility,
seconds.
darling, never mind.
12 seconds. A war of words with you, Marcus, starting now.
A war of words is all that Prince Harry has left since they decided that he's not allowed to go to Iraq and fight an actual war on account of he might...
So, at the end of that round, with Marcus getting the extra point for speaking as the whistle went, he has moved forward. Oh, it's incredible. They're all equal with 3 points. And Marcus, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is the aristocracy. Can you tell us something about that in this game? The aristocracy. 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
I think that many of us mistake the aristocracy for people who are mentally ill, and that's not strictly their fault. It's just because they are inclined to say things like, "Oh, hello," and that is very baffling if you've never met them before. Now, the aristocracy have always owned huge tracts of land. In fact, many of them are in possession of so much.
Pauline challenged.
Was there a repetition of in fact?
No, I don't think so.
Well, don't look at me. I've no idea. I was thinking so hard, I've given myself a nosebleed.
Sorry,
Okay,
Maureen, no.
take it back.
Incorrect. So, Marcus, you still have the aristocracy, and 38 seconds starting now.
Not all of the aristocracy have webbed feet, but many of them do, and that is something that they are ferociously proud of, and it does make them tremendous swimmers. Now, when they are in the lakes that they have in their overly large gardens, they tend to propel themselves with their bizarre flipper-like feet from years of...
Paul challenged.
There was a hesitation there, there was an R.
Definitely,
Yeah,
yes.
it was a big R,
sadly.
So, Paul, you've gone in with 16 seconds to go. Tell us something about the aristocracy starting now.
I remember when I first came into contact with the aristocracy, I was with Nicholas Parsons, and he said, "Come with me to this marvellous castle that I know, somewhere deep in the heart of Scotland." And, you know, I was rogered senseless... by the old Duke himself. And a souvenir tea towel
Maureen,
as well.
you challenge in the middle of the rogering.
Yeah, it's let me down all my life. I heard a repetition of you know.
Yes, he did say you know. It's really one of his impersonation of the aristocracy. So 3 seconds available for you, Maureen, on the aristocracy starting now.
Well, of course, I played Joyce Grenfell for quite a long time, you know. And when...
So, Maureen Lipman was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. She's moved forward, and she's now in second place, actually, one behind Marcus Brigstocke, and only one ahead of Paul Merton and Pam Ayres. And Maureen, will you start the next round? The subject, a beginner's guide Tell us something about that in this game starting now.
Well, you can get a beginner's guide to almost anything. You can get a beginner's guide to car maintenance.
Marcus challenge.
Sorry, here's a repetition of you can get.
You can get. I'm afraid. You can get a beginner's guide.
Really, really crap at this.
Now look here.
I know.
Nicholas, you're supposed to say, no, you're not.
Yeah. It's the look on Maureen's face that has now got that big laugh, because we're waiting for her to pounce when Marcus begins with the subject with 56 seconds on a beginner's guide starting now.
When I was in the Cub Scouts, there was a particularly game guide in the guide's movement.
Pam challenge.
I thought that was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation, Pam.
It was an extended in the. I don't know if that counts.
Well, you deserved it.
Pam, you have 51 seconds. Tell us something about a beginner's guide starting now.
I like beginner's guides because no one ever says that is a really stupid, infantile question and makes you feel like a heel. Beginner's guides are really nice if you are starting out on something which you've never done before and which... No, I've blown.
Maureen, yes.
Yes, just general kind of all-purpose garble, wasn't it?
How dare you?
Of the kind I'm about to do, really.
So you've got in, Maureen, on a beginner's guide, and 31 seconds starting now.
I'd like to have a...
Paul challenge.
Well, just that it saves time, really, doesn't it?
Well, Maureen gets a point because she was interrupted. You get a point because the audience enjoyed it. And Maureen, you still have 30 seconds to tell us something about a beginner's guide starting now.
I'd like a beginner's guide to tango because I'm absolutely obsessed with that dance. And I'd also like a beginner's guide to how to learn a language without ever stopping to hesitate.
Paul challenge.
That was a hesitation.
That was a hesitation, Paul. So you tell us something about a beginner's guide. 21 seconds available starting now.
For those of you who've got a head like a sieve, can I recommend a beginner's guide which is now available in the bookshop just outside this tent? It's a magnificent work. It's written by the man who I mentioned earlier, and I can't say him again because that would be repetition, but it's a magnificent approach.
Maureen challenge.
That was a magnificent
yes,
repetition,
magnificent. You couldn't resist it. Right. So, Maureen, you've got in with 8 seconds. Tell us more about a beginner's guide starting now.
A beginner's guide to understanding your fellow human being and the environment of the world would be something worth having, would it not? In fact, I think that particular book...
So Maureen Lipman was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and with others in the round, she has leapt forward. She's now in second place, one behind Paul Merton and just ahead of Marcus Brigstocke and Pam Ayres. And Marcus, it's your turn to begin. The subject, oh gosh, is rather sad. A brush with death.
Okay.
Oh, we've never had sort of sombre subjects like that before. So anyway, do your best, Marcus. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
When I was at school, a certain matron used to use a sharp and infected knit comb, and we used to refer to it as a brush with death. Of course, it wasn't, and that's not what a brush with death really means. What it really...
Pam challenge.
What it? Repetition
yes,
of what it?
Hesitation. Right. Pam, you have the subject. A brush with death. 46 seconds starting now.
I own an enormous Cotswold ram called Gabriel Oakes, and if anybody is foolish enough to venture into his field, you are risking a very real and authentic brush with death, because he has got a foul temper, particularly in the mating season when ewes are in insufficient supply. That is all I can think of to say.
Marcus challenged first. So
yes,
hesitation, a brush with death, Marcus, and 21 seconds starting now.
I wonder if anyone here ever saw the children's programme Basil Brush with Death, in which every time that fox told a joke, he said boom, just the once, and people exploded because of the force of his humour. He would then spin round and whip them to pieces with a karate chop.
Paul challenge.
There was a slight hesitation.
There was a hesitation, Paul, and you have 2 seconds.
Oh.
Yes, a brush with... 4 people didn't want you to have it, but... 2 seconds. A brush with death, Paul, starting now.
I've got a very interesting story about a brush with death, but
Right, so Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, and he gained that extra point for doing so, and he has leapt forward. I think he's got another point there, yes. And he's now in the lead, 1 ahead of Maureen Lipman, and 2 or 3 ahead of Pam Ayres and Marcus Brigstocke. Paul, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is my favourite sin. This is going to be fun. Tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
my favourite sin, well, there are so many to choose from, aren't there? If we just catalogue and list them now, then maybe I can get to the end of the minute without particularly addressing the subject. Yes, my favourite sin is undoubtedly gluttony. I can't stop eating. I love it.
That wasn't a pause, that was a cavern.
Why talk when you can eat?
And,
He's sitting next to a Jewish mother and says a word like that, I'm going to have to marry him.
46 seconds on my favourite sin, starting now.
I think my favourite sin is covetousness, because I don't understand what it means. I understand envy, I understand jealousy. I always do
Marcus
that.
challenge.
I've got this way of a rating, haven't I?
I know.
I've got
I
to
know.
stop.
It's a very literary style, which is apt for... By the way, if you can hear occasional squeaking or groaning noises, it's not my aged bones. It is because we're in this tent here at Hay on Wye, and occasionally the wind makes it... like that, you see.
Yes, it sounds just like booing. We tell him that every time. It's the building, Nicholas.
Right.
It's a booing building, Nicholas. The last show here went so badly, you can still hear the boos echoing around.
So, Marcus, I think you challenge first.
Yes.
Right, and you have 42 seconds on my favourite sin, starting now.
Undoubtedly, my favourite sin is driving crisp packets into people's hedges. I take a massive amount of enjoyment.
Paul, challenge.
Driving?
Yeah.
Driving crisp packets?
Yes, you
Well, you
can't
install them
fling
with a little motor?
No. The packet's too light to fling into a hedge. You have to drive it in. Otherwise, the crisp packet won't stay in someone's hedge. They'll find it immediately and remove it.
Oh, I
Takes
see.
all
It's
the fun
much
out
more
of it.
complicated than I imagined.
I mean, if you'd said push, it might have been a bit, but everybody thought you were getting your motor car.
No,
and
pushing
driving.
won't work. You'll uproot the hedge, Nicholas. You have to drive it in. You can't use a car.
I know.
Can I ask what is the purpose of the exercise?
Well, I don't know. Have I still got the subject?
Yes.
Yes. Let's find out why he does it, Nicholas.
No, he has still got the subject. We give him the benefit of the doubt on his description, and he's environmentally so unfriendly, I'd rather he didn't have it, but it's... there are 34 seconds. My favourite sin, Marcus, starting now.
When I've finished eating my slices of fried, salty, vinegary potato matter, it really does give me a tremendous amount of pleasure to take the packet, oh damn packet,
Paul.
Repetition of packet, oh damn packet.
Oh, damn. Paul. This show gets quite Shakespearean on occasions, doesn't it? Right, 23 seconds. My favourite sin, starting now.
My favourite sin is removing crisp bags from hedges. I don't know who put them there, but they're driven right in. And there's no way you can get them out. If it had just been pushed, I would have accepted that, but the amount of driving involved is intense. Somebody has obviously got it in their heads to go round Britain and to despoil our wonderful green countryside with these cellophane-wrapped bits of...
Maureen's
What
turn.
is a cellophone? Is it something I...
It's like a mobile phone.
Okay.
It sounds like cellophane.
I think that's deviation from the language as we understand it, yes.
Is it?
Yes, it was, because, I mean, cellophane, yes, but cellophone... Lovely
You talk
thought.
like an Italian. I got my cellophone here, you know?
Maureen,
Yes.
you've got 4 seconds to tell us something about my favourite sin, starting now.
Well, on the subject of the adultery sin, let's talk about that for a while, for 4 seconds.
So, Maureen Lipman, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she's now equal in the lead with Paul Merton, and they're only just ahead of Marcus Brigstocke and Pam Ayres in that order. And Maureen, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject is now playing to the crowd. Something we never do in this show, do we? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Playing to the crowd means that you get up there and you show off, and I've been doing it since birth. I've been doing the...
I have. Yes, Pam.
I've been
Yes,
a repetition
that's
of
right.
Ayres.
Yes.
I've
Sorry,
been as
Maureen.
well. I know.
No, it's her literary style which
It is.
trips her up here. 54 seconds, Pam, with you. Another point, of course, playing to the crowd starting now.
When I hear the expression playing to the crowd, I see a mental image of somebody like Wayne Rooney having just done something magnificent and triumphant in a football match, doing what appears to me to be a pelvic thrust.
Maureen challenge.
Doing.
There were two doings.
Oh, below.
Wayne Rooney was doing
it was the
and-
thought of the pelvic thrust that got me excited.
Maureen, another point to you and 40 seconds on playing to the crowd starting now.
Playing to the crowd, as I was saying earlier, is getting up and showing off in front of a whole bunch
Paul
of
challenge.
Well, unfortunately, as you said earlier, that makes it repetition. You did say get up and show it off, and did say the whole
You did
thing.
say, but I don't think she actually said any of those words earlier.
Well, showing off.
Oh, showing off,
Yeah.
you're quite right.
I
yes.
said every word
Well,
twice,
listen,
didn't
yes.
I?
So, Paul, 36 seconds on playing to the crowd starting now.
It's an expression which means that sometimes you ignore your...
Maureen challenge.
There was a stumble there, an hesitation. It's an expression that sort of says... No? Oh, it's that noise again, Nicola. Sorry.
I must have hated that last show so much.
Maureen, a moment ago you had this audience in the palm of your hand, but
now they're
I think
booing
you
me, I know.
suddenly pushed them over. So Paul was interrupted and he has 33 seconds. Another point, of course, playing to the crowd starting now.
The first time I was on stage at the Hackney Empire, Mr. Roland Muldoon, who was running that venue at the time, said, when you stand here on this platform, look very high up because the balconies right at the top are extremely steep. And it was a good way of knowing that you have to look at various parts of the...
And Maureen challenge.
Look
Look,
right up.
yes.
Yeah,
look
yes,
right
yes,
up.
yes, yeah.
Look right up.
Look right up.
Walk right in.
And Maureen,
right.
we're in the last round. The two of you are battling out for the lead. You've got 18 seconds playing to the crowd starting now.
Somebody like Tom Jones plays to the crowd, and that's why women throw 400 pairs of knickers at him a night. Now, do they get gathered up afterwards?
Paul challenge.
Is that really an accurate figure?
I don't know if he's got an accurate figure now. He used to be quite chunky. It was certainly at the Regal in Hull that 400 pairs of knickers were found, but it was a Beatles concert.
Don't think they counted them, actually, Maureen. So Paul has a legitimate point, and so in one sense you were deviating, so we get a point for that. But you... No, but Maureen also gets a point because she was interrupted. And also her comeback was rather lovely, so it actually reinforces my decision.
Oh, now who's playing to the crowd? And you can all have cake to take home.
As I said, we're playing.
Whatever you do, don't let Nicholas invite you to a castle for a weekend.
Otherwise, I might bring my friend Roger with me.
That's how it was explained to me.
Officer.
10 seconds, Maureen, playing to the crowd, starting now.
Because you gave it to him.
No, my darling.
You said that my numbers were wrong, 400.
No, I gave him a point because we enjoyed his interruption.
Okay.
But you got a point for being interrupted.
OK, I'm ready now.
You're ready now. Legitimately, I should take it away because you mouthed, but it doesn't matter.
I know, but
Right. We go back to 10 seconds, Maureen. Playing to the crowd, starting now.
Playing to the crowd is something that we're all doing this afternoon, sitting in this tent in a very wet place. You don't know it's wet, and I don't know it's
Marcus
wet.
challenged.
Yes, I'm afraid that's deviation. Those of us on the panel are playing to the crowd, but you said everyone in the tent, and they are the crowd, so...
Yes, a subtle challenge, but correct. And 4 seconds for you, Marcus, playing to the crowd, starting now.
George W. Gump plays to the crowd in...
Paul challenge.
I thought you were going to say George W. Bush and you got it wrong. But after I'd buzzed, I thought, well, the likelihood you probably wouldn't get that wrong, so it's a bad challenge, I'm afraid. But there
Yes,
we
it
are.
was a bad challenge. He gets a point
He
for
does,
it.
yeah.
Yes. But he's got another point, and he has 3 seconds on playing to the crowd, starting now.
His crowd being gun-toting Republican Americans, and they like...
So let me now give you the final score. Pam Ayres, who hasn't played the game for quite a while, came from nowhere and finished in a magnificent 4th place. Marcus, with all his verve and tenacity, finished in a brilliant 3rd place. But we have a very fair and interesting and delightful finish because we have 2 people equal in the lead, which is Paul Merton with Maureen Lipman, our joint winners. Well, that is all we have time for, so it only remains me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players again, Paul Merton, Maureen Lipman, Pam Ayres and Marcus Brigstocke. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with great aplomb. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. We are very grateful to our producer, Talusha Galani, and we are more than grateful to this lovely audience in this very wet tent here at the Guardian Hay Festival in Hay-on-Wye, who've cheered us on our way magnificently. From that audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, thank you. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Yes! Welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also to welcome 4 distinctive, individual and talented performers who this week are going to show their verbal dexterity, their ingenuity and wit with language and words as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those 4 stalwarts are seated on my right, it's Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, it's Tony Hawks and Dave Gorman. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the recently refurbished Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House near the centre of London, and we've got a fine-looking audience in front of us, so we'll begin the show with Tony Hawks. Tony, the subject in front of me, happy hour. Tell us something about happy hour in just a minute, starting now.
I strongly believe that there should be penalties for people who aren't happy enough during happy hour. Furthermore, if those people cease to be happy...
And Paul Merton challenge.
I think we had 2 people there, didn't we? People and people.
Yes, we did indeed. Well, listen, Paul, you have 50 seconds to take over the subject of happy hour, and you get a point, of course, for a correct challenge, and your time starts now.
It does rather infer that the other 23 should be dead miserable, and I don't think that's the case. Happy hour should be extended into a happy life. All of us should do jobs that we find fulfilling. Look at Nicholas Parsons. He absolutely loves the work. It gets him out of the house, and it's...
Dave Gorman challenge.
You made me look at Nicholas Parsons.
So, Dave, what is your challenge within the rules of Just a Minute?
Deviation.
Why?
Because you're on the radio and I only ever listen to you. And I had to look at you. And that was a deviation from the norm.
I think your reasoning is very devious, and I'd love to give you a point, and it's lovely to hear from you, but I'm afraid I don't think it was deviation within the rules of Just a Minute. So, Paul, you have an incorrect challenge. 36 seconds for you, Paul, still on happy hour, starting now.
When I first went down in a submarine, I was absolutely ecstatic. We were there underneath the ocean for barely 60 minutes, but I have to say it was amongst the happiest times of my life. Who could have predicted at the age of 14 that I would one day become a submariner? I was thrilled to be in that position. Somebody's gone like that, but there's no reason.
And Clement challenge.
Deviation.
What?
Someone is doing that. It's nothing to do with a happy hour.
Well, I've never been in a submarine for that matter. I mean, you know.
I'm perfectly prepared to believe that going down in a submarine gives you a degree of happiness.
Especially the way you've just put it, yes.
Yes. And that's what Paul was trying to convey, and I absolutely agree with him.
Were you not listening? You went.
I listened to every single word. He went down the submarine. He was 14 years of age. He was in an ecstatic situation. He was the happiest hour of his life, and he came up again, and he was still going on about it. I thought you were going to get him for that noise, which was rather a repetitious noise, wasn't it? But it's too late now, so... Paul, benefit of the doubt, another point to you, 16 seconds available, happy hour starting now.
Bars indulge in the practice of happy hour to lure punters into their premises, and once they're drunk, the seasoning will go into their heads, and they will think to themselves, I must have more alcohol, beer, wine, whiskey, gin, brandy, the full panoply of spirits are available to me.
So Paul Merton was speaking when the whistle went, and whoever is doing that in this game, of course, gets an extra point. And so at the end of that round, he's the only one to have any points at all. And Clement, will you begin the next round? The subject is 2 sides to every story, which is what I find when I get a challenge in just a minute and I have to make a decision. 60 seconds for you, Clement, starting now.
If there are to be 2 sides to every story, let me give you the first story. Once upon a time in a forest, there lived an elderly woman with 8 grandchildren. Her husband was a...
Tony challenge.
Fluent story, wasn't it?
Was there a hesitation?
There was indeed.
The story could have gone on for some days, I felt.
A point to you for a correct challenge, Tony. 46 seconds. Tell us about 2 sides to every story starting now.
People say that there are 2 sides to every story, but is that really the case? There are 4 sides to a 2-story building.
Dave challenged.
There was a hesitation.
That was a hesitation, Dave. Yes, so you have the subject. You have 38 seconds. Tell us something about 2 sides to every story starting now.
There are at least 2 sides to every story, and some stories have more than 2 sides. For example, when Kate O'Mara starred in Triangle, that certainly had at least 3 sides to its story. I used to live in a block of flats. Every single story had more than 2 sides. If it didn't, the whole thing would have fallen down. The phrase, the 2 sides to every story, denotes that you should never take one person's word for it when there might be another version of events that you should really inquire into. Imagine in the legal situation where someone just listened to the first witness and...
Dave Gorman hasn't played the game as much as the others, and he went magnificently then for 45 seconds. Well done, Dave. And Tony Hawk's got in with 5 seconds to go. So, will you take back 2 sides to every story? 5 seconds starting now.
There are 2 sides to every story. Nicholas Parsons knows this only too well. Every time the buzzer...
And Paul challenged.
We have the phrase there are, and we had there are before.
Yes, there are 2 sides to every story. You started before when you said there are 2 sides to every story, and you went on about that. So, well, listen, Paul, right back to the beginning, and got in with half a second to go. 2 sides to every story, starting now.
If we look at some of the...
Paul was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, has increased his lead ahead of Tony Hawk's Dave Gorman and Clement Freud. Dave Gorman, will you begin the next round? The subject is Room 102. Tell us something about Room 102, starting now.
Before we can fully understand the significance of Room 102, we must first become aware of the literary reference to 1984, set in a dystopian future. He uses Room 101 as a symbol of everything that is wrong in the world. It takes its number from the number of Dalmatians.
And Clement, you challenged.
Repetition of number.
Yes, there were too many numbers there. So 38 seconds available still. Clement, tell us something about Room 102, starting now.
I once stayed in Room 102 of a not very good hotel in Las Vegas, and at 11 o'clock at night, there was a knock on my door, and the man said, "House detective, have you got a woman in there?" I said no, and he said, "Would you like one?" I think I'll stop there.
Tony Hawk's, you challenged.
I just want the name of the hotel. No, I think there was a repetition of said in there.
That's right, yes. Well done, Tony. You have 21 seconds. Room 102 starting now.
Room 102 was by far the largest classroom at Goldstone Junior School, where I was an infant many years ago. Oh, what fun we would have in that very place. We would gather pencil sharpeners.
And Paul challenged.
Well, it's a very small word, but it's quite a lot of we's there.
There were a lot of we's there. We gathered there, and we did this, and a lot of wee-wees. And so, what a funny audience. And 8 seconds for you, Paul, on room 102, starting now.
Room 102 is a magnificent idea for a television programme. What you do is you get people to talk about their favourite things, and you then...
So, Paul Merton was speaking then as the whistle went and has increased his lead at the end of that round. And Paul, it's also your turn to begin. So would you now take the subject of sibling rivalry? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
All the Wright brothers were very competitive. They each one wanted to invent the plane first. So Wilbur would say to Orville, I'm just going round the back to do a bit of shopping, but secretly he was sticking wings onto a Volkswagen and driving it down the runway and soaring above the clouds, and he'd come back, oh, the shops were shut. And then the other brother would say to himself, what's that over there? And he'd run round and he'd get into a Tiger Moth and he'd circle all around the aerodrome. Of course, it wasn't called that in them days, no. It was called the back of the supermarket, and that's what they used to do as fierce brothers, even at an early age.
And Tony challenged.
I just thought he was going to die if I didn't butt. Repetition of brothers?
Yes, they were talking
yes.
about the brothers, yes. I mean, they were siblings, but that was not on the card. So,
No,
but we did enjoy it. We could have let you go on about that, yes.
Yeah, well, you didn't know, did you?
Tony, you have the correct challenge. A point to you. Sibling rivalry. 33 seconds, starting now.
Sibling rivalry is not to be confused with gosling rivalry or quisling rivalry. These are completely different things, and I shan't be talking about them.
Paul challenged.
Well, it's just rubbish. Deviation from something. Quisling rivalry? What's quisling rivalry?
I couldn't tell you, it's not on the subject.
Well, he's deviating from the subject by telling us what he's not talking about. And by talking about it, he's deviating from the thing that he says he's not talking about it because he's talking about it.
Yes, he was going on about different kinds of rivalry and not sibling rivalry. I was fascinated by the quisling rivalry, all the quislings who occurred during the last war, all rivaling each other. It created an image that...
well, I mean, if you give me the subject, I'll tell you about it.
But you said you weren't going to tell us about it. You just deliberately said you weren't going to tell us about quisling rivalry, and now here you are dangling it in front of us.
I've changed.
No, it's sibling rivalry, and there are 23 seconds still available. Paul, it's with you, starting now.
If you take brothers and sisters...
Tony challenged.
A repetition of brothers.
Oh, yeah, you used the word brothers before, the Wright brothers, yes.
Did I say brother? No, I said brothers.
No, you did talk about the Wright brothers, yes. So, Tony, you've got it straight back. 21 seconds, starting now.
My three brothers are intensely jealous of me. They've always wanted to appear on this show. A class act is how they describe it. What disillusioned figures they must be. And
Clement challenged.
3 days.
Yes, there were 3 days.
That might be the name of each one of his brothers. We don't know.
And Clement, you have 14 seconds, starting now.
One of the extraordinary things about only children is that not only do they not have penis envy...
And Paul challenged.
Oh, it's a shame, but there was 2 onlys in quick succession.
Yes, the 2 onlys in quick succession.
Only child, only.
So there are 9 seconds still on sibling rivalry with you, Paul, starting now.
My sister is somewhat younger than me, so I've never been in the position of having an older brother. But...
Clement.
Repetition of brother.
No, I said brothers before.
No. You said one brother invented this.
That's right,
machine.
you did indeed.
Oh, I've said brother and brothers.
You said brothers.
You said both.
The Wright brothers, and one brother did this, and the other brother put the wings on. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So there's 7 seconds available with you, Clement, on sibling rivalry, starting now.
If parents only have
Paul challenge.
Repetition of only. Unbelievably. Repetition of only.
I believe it.
6 seconds still. Sibling rivalry starting now.
Dave Davis and his brothers. I've said that again.
How many times did he get to say brother and brother in one
I
round?
think every time I get the chance.
Repetition.
Every time. But anyway, a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
And And correct challenge, Tony. You've got 3 seconds on Sibling Rivalry starting now.
I've heard it said that the Wright brothers were particularly...
Oh, yeah, who said that, Dave?
To be honest, I just heard the word brothers again, and it was a Pavlovian reaction by now. Every time I hear it, I try to press the buzzer.
Actually, I said brothers in the first time round. I said my 3 brothers before, so he's right.
So, Dave, you have 1 second on Sibling Rivalry starting now.
Being a twin...
So Dave Gorman was speaking then as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and he's in 3rd place now. He's ahead of Clement Freud, and he's a little bit behind Tony Hawks and a few behind Paul Merton, who's still in the lead. And Tony, it's your turn to begin. So the subject we'd like you to begin with is how to whistle. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow. Those marvellous words said in a film which, unfortunately, I cannot say the title of, otherwise I will be buzzed for repetition. The aficionados amongst you will know anyway, so you don't need to be patronised by the likes of me. However, it has just happened. I would like to add at this point that I have always been an excellent whistler because I was taught how to whistle when I was just 4 years old in room 102, which was the largest classroom in Goldstone Junior.
And Dave challenged.
I think there was a sort of hesitation in class where he sort of stumbled over his words.
He stumbled
in
a
class.
little bit, Dave, yes. Benefit of the doubt. You have the subject of how to whistle. You have 27 seconds available starting now.
I do not know how to whistle. If I were to try to whistle now, it would just sound like I was...
And Clement challenged.
I think that was hesitation.
It was hesitation, Clement, yes. 21 seconds, how to whistle, starting now.
Like Dave Gorman, I do not know how to whistle, but Trudy, who blows the whistle, is extremely competent. Seldom has anyone sat next to you with a greater ability to put this thing in her mouth and blow and make a noise which stops us from talking altogether because it is...
So Clement Freud, speaking as a whistle when, gained that extra point. For those in the round, is now equal with Dave Gorman in 3rd place, 1 behind Tony Hawks. Paul Merton's just a few ahead in the lead. And Clement, it's your turn to begin. What a charming subject now. Will you take this Lily of the Valley? Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Lily, many people remember, was a tremendous supporter of Charlton Athletic Football Club, who play at the Valley, an old sand pit in southeast London, which when it began...
And Paul challenged.
There was a slight hesitation.
There was a slight hesitation, Paul. So Lily of the Valley is with you, 47 seconds available, starting now.
Although I don't think the hesitation was perhaps justified enough to me to take over the subject, so I hand it back to Clement.
Clement challenged.
I'll accept it.
He accepts it.
So, Clement, you have another point, and you have 44 seconds. Continue on Lily of the Valley, starting now.
The Valley, when it first opened, held 75,000 people, was the largest ground anywhere, and hardly anyone came.
And Tony challenged.
I think you said ground the first time round.
Yes. Did you talk about the ground at the beginning? Yes?
Pitch, I think.
No, it was a ground.
Was it?
Well...
Anyone recording this? We could solve a lot of these problems just by listening it back, couldn't we?
He definitely didn't say pitch.
No, he didn't say pitch, he said ground.
Good try.
Lily of the Valley is with you. 36 seconds, Tony, starting now.
Lily of the Valley was just outside Swansea, Astrigan Lice.
And Paul challenged.
Then why is he doing a South African accent?
We enjoyed the interruption.
Yeah.
But, so we give you a bonus point for that. But he was interrupted.
Yes.
And though it was a very bad Welsh accent, he can do what the hell he likes in just a minute, providing he doesn't hesitate, repeat something, or deviate. So 32 seconds, Lily of the Valley with you, Tony, starting now.
In a valley just outside Cape Town, there was this really...
Now that's Welsh, that's Welsh. Repetition of just outside. I think just outside
yes,
Swansea,
that's correct.
just outside Cape
Paul,
Town.
30 seconds. Lily of the Valley is with you, starting now.
Lily is a wonderful woman, you know. And when you go to the valley, there she is by the cottage. And she's eating lava bread and she's got a rugby ball under her hand. And she's got a Max voice album playing in...
Tony challenged.
Well, I don't think there's any place for South African in this. No, I think there are 3 she got.
She got, yes, you got to go, yes, she had the lava.
Could you tell the way I was saying it?
Oh, yes, I think the Welsh would have been very embarrassed at the whole thing. The 20 seconds, Lily of the Valley with you, Tony, starting now.
I am growing a lily of the valley in my back garden. I planted it last Thursday. Not interesting information for you, but using up valuable time from my point of view. I'm hoping it will grow large.
And Paul challenging.
Deviation, he's talking about, wasting time from his point of view, not information. He's come off Lily of the Valley. He's talking about how much time he's got left. Complete deviation, absolutely outrageous.
Yeah,
I've come here all the way from Great Portland Street. I don't have to listen to this.
That was echoes of Kenneth Williams, who came all the way from Great Portland Street. Yes, I think you have the benefit of the doubt. Paul, Lily of the Valley is back with you. 11 seconds, starting now.
I have...
And Clement challenge.
Hesitation.
No. It hardly started. And 10 seconds.
He hadn't started. That's what hesitation is.
1 second had gone on the clock.
That's
and he did
hesitation.
speak during that time.
Yeah.
So there can hardly be hesitation.
You think 1 second is not hesitation?
1 second of
It's
speech.
16%.
There
it
was 1 second of speech, and so he has 10 seconds still to
what a
continue
good
on Lily
decision.
of the Valley, starting now.
Edward VII's secret lover was Lily Langtry, and he used to meet her every Friday night in a valley just round the back of Buckingham Palace. They had a right old time. He used to love...
So Paul Merton was again speaking as a whistle and gained that extra point. He's increased his lead ahead of Tony Hawkes, Clement Freud and Dave Gorman in that order. And Dave, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is In a Chat Room. Can you tell us something about In a Chat Room starting now?
A chat room depends on the language you're speaking. In English, it would be a place on a computer where people could have a virtual conversation. In French, it would be a place where you keep a cat. On a
Tony, you challenge.
Yes, it was quite a faulty buzzer there. I had to actually bash it against the light to get it to work.
So what was your challenge?
It was hesitation.
Yes, it was indeed, yes. So you have 48 seconds on In a Chat Room starting now.
If you use wireless internet, you can actually be in a chat room whilst being outside. Quite an extraordinary thing if you think about it. But let's not spend too much time on that. I have a chat room at home in which I invite guests. We sit down and we have a biscuit sometimes. Tea follows. Stupid, I should offer that first, but I don't. I'm particular about that. And we chat sometimes about just how dull I have become in the last year and a half. Partly as a result of being on this show and having to fill time. Not that I'm doing that now, Paul, let me tell you. I am chatting, in a way, to this audience, who are enthralled by everything I'm saying, which is extraordinary. They must be quite sad.
And Paul challenge.
I don't know if they're enthralled by everything you're saying. I don't think that's deviation. I don't think they're enthralled by everything you're
No,
saying.
I think they were bored, but they laughed. I think you're correct. I mean, I think that would be a fair interpretation. They were not actually
No,
enthralled.
but I was looking at them, Nicholas. Not one of them were...
Well, I suppose the final arbiters have to be the audience, and they were, according to them, enthralled. It's amazing what will enthrall this audience, isn't it? Who challenged that? Clement?
Me. Do you think I could have a bonus point because my buzzer doesn't work very well? I haven't had a point for quite a long time.
Should have a point. He hasn't had a point for a long time.
I know, but the audience endorsed it, so they give him a point. The audience in fact, give him 2 points and make him very happy. Right. But the audience decided that you had been enthralled by your rubbish, Tony. So you have the benefit of the doubt, and you have 10 seconds in a chat room starting now.
In a chat room just outside Stellenbosch, near Cape Town, stood Lily. She had never been in one of these before. She was nervous, as you would expect.
And Paul challenge.
Repetition of she.
She, yes. Stood Lily, yes, 2 she's. 3 seconds available still in a chat room with you, Paul, starting now.
When I sit down in front of my computer early in the morning, I say to myself...
When may Dave challenge?
I think it was a computer, wasn't it? Not
Yeah,
a
I've got
computer.
a cheap one.
It was, yes.
I've got a cheap one.
You've got a cheap one. I
It's
I
a
think you
commuter.
meant to say computer.
It's
but
a guy that travels back to the bank every day. He's a commuter.
Computer. I think it was deviation from the language as we understand it. So, Dave, you have the point. You have half a second on this occasion. You're getting good at getting in like that. In a chat room with you, Dave, starting now.
Yahoo.com.
So Dave Gorman got that extra point for speaking as the whistle went, and he's now equal with Clement Freud in third place. They're just behind Tony Hawks, and they're all a little way behind Paul Merton, who's still in the lead as we move into the final round. And Tony, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now, the fourth wall. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
The fourth wall is the one you build before you realise you can't get out of the room. It's a terrible error. I've done it on many occasions, had to be rescued some time ago when it happened. But it also is a theatrical reference to the fourth wall is said to be the one that you mustn't break. In a play, if you talk to the audience, then you have shattered the illusion of the magical world you have worked so hard to create. Oh, the director would be furious with you. He would have a bit of a mincy tantrum, possibly, coming up to you saying, "What are you doing that for?" That was a very rude...
Paul challenge. Yes, Paul.
Well, it became a bit gibberish then, didn't it?
Yes.
Lapsed
Yes.
into Romanian unnecessarily.
No, we will call that hesitation and or deviation, whichever you like. But 27 seconds with you, Paul, on the fourth wall, starting now.
The fourth wall. When we think of how many great walls there have been in the world, how many conjure up in our heads?
And Clement challenged.
Repetition of how many?
That's right. How?
I would have
Certainly.
thought.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, Clement.
I would have thought as well.
Point for you. 20 seconds. Tell us something about the fourth wall, starting now.
I have walked across the fourth bridge, and look as I would, no fourth wall. Not anywhere. It's odd that bridges tend not to have walls. Have you noticed?
You challenged.
I think he was just realising how many bridges do have walls. But anyway, I think he definitely hesitated.
And so 9 seconds are still available, Tony. Tell us something about the fourth wall, starting now.
The fourth wall is slightly positioned onwards from the third wall, which itself is also...
And Paul challenged.
It was hesitation.
That was a hesitation. Yes, the fourth wall is back with you, Paul, and you have 4 seconds, starting now.
Max Wall came from a long line of music hall artistes.
So, let me give you the final situation. Dave Gorman, as I said, only played the game once before. He came in a very strong 4th place. Yes, it was very powerful.
Can I just point out that in that game, Clement did just buzz in and say, "Can I have some points?" and you gave him 2. And if you just gave me 2 for asking, then I'd be level.
I will give you some... Give him 2. There's nothing like being bold. So, Dave, you're no longer in 4th place.
Hang on a second. I am to understand that myself and Tony are being penalised here because we haven't so far asked for 2 points.
It won't make any difference to the result. I can give you both 2 points if you want. But
I'd very much like to give one of my points
to
to Dave. So
I'm
that he
sorry,
could become
no, you're not.
third
I can
outright.
give the points, but no, I don't think the contestants can give the points to the other contestants.
Let's have a bloodless coup.
I wouldn't accept your point anyway, Clement. I'm very happy to tie with you. I wouldn't want your charity. I don't want to be
tie with you.
patronised.
No, I agree with your reasoning, Dave. I did give 2 bonus points to Clement, and you didn't get any, so you got 2 bonus points, and you're now equal at the end alongside Clement Freud.
I'm happy to give up some of my
Well, I'll
points.
tell you what.
I don't need them anymore.
Tony.
Frankly, Dave could have them.
No, I'll give you 2 bonus points as well. Tony Hawks, I've given you 2 bonus points, but you're still in 2nd place. But out in the lead, and I don't think you're anyway going to catch him today, he's got quite a lot of points. It's Paul Merton, so we say, Paul, this week you are our winner. So, thank you very much. Very amazing. Thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul, Merton, Clement Freud, Dave Gorman and Tony Hawks. I also thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score, blown a whistle magnificently when the 60 seconds elapsed. And we are grateful to our producer, to Lucia Gilani. We're very indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game which we enjoy playing. And we're indebted to this lovely audience here at the Radio Theatre in Broadcasting House, who have cheerfully cheered us on our way. From me, Nicholas Parsons, from our team, goodbye. And don't forget, listeners, tune in the next time we play Just a Minute.
And next week, Clement Freud will once again join Nicholas along with Giles Brandreth, Graham Norton and Phil Jupiters. That's at the same time, 6:30.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our millions of listeners around the world, but also to welcome to the programme this particular week 4 exciting and talented players of the game. And seated on my right, we welcome for the first time on the show that talented comedian and presenter, Phil Jupiters. Beside him, we have our veteran player of the game who's played it more times than he can possibly remember. That is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we welcome back with great pleasure one of the real stars of television today who's made himself so engaging. The man I call the leprechaun of comedy. The one and only Graham Norton, and beside him, a brilliant writer, raconteur, actor, everything. He's done it all, and that is Giles Brandreth. And would you please welcome all 4 of them? Thank you. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score, and she blows the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Courtyard Theatre here in Stratford-on-Avon. And we have people from every quarter of the great county of Warwickshire who've come a long way to be entertained, and they're dying for us to get started. So we'll begin with Graham Norton. Graham, the subject, oh, so apt to start off his way up in Stratford-on-Avon. The Bard. Tell us something about the Bard in this game, starting now.
Ah, the Bard, the Bard. What a pleasure to speak of Shakespeare in this, his hometown. Originally, he was known as the Bard I because he was a hopeless alcoholic and was removed from most public houses in the town. Don't serve him, he turns nasty. And that's when he turned to the pen.
Giles, challenge.
He turned nasty, then he turned to the pen.
Yes, he turned twice.
No, he turns nasty.
No.
Then he turned to the pen.
Graham, I was listening. You can't wriggle out of it that way. It was, no, it was a repetition. So, Giles, you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course, and you take over the subject of the Bard, and there are 37 seconds available, starting now.
The Bard has indeed to be William Shakespeare. It can be no other. What self-respecting actor would want to belong to the Royal Bacon Company? He was indeed born not a stone's throw from here in Henley Street, brought up well by 2 loving parents, and then he married an older woman who looked, I think, a little bit like Germaine Greer. She called William Orr, and she was a little bit sour in appearance, but gooser, and she livened up no end. As a result of this, he had several children and moved to London quite quickly, where he took up the theatre and began writing play after script. Oh yes, he was the man who created poesy, and more than that.
So Giles Brandreth was then speaking as the whistle went, and whoever does that, of course, gains an extra point. And at the end of that round, Giles is anyone who's got any points, actually. And Giles, it's back with you to start. And you'll be surprised to hear that this subject is brevity is the soul of wit. So if you can go on that for 60 seconds or less, as time starts now.
Brevity is the soul of wit is a line from Shakespeare's most famous play. I essayed the role on one occasion, but was so poor that the audience threw eggs at me. I went on as Hamlet, came off as omelette. Coolidge, the American president, was known for his taciturnity. He had brevity as the soul of wit actually knitted on a sampler in his boudoir. A young lady sat next to him at dinner and said, "I have a bet that I can get more than 3 words out of you." He said, "You lose." Now, I have to say that when speaking, it's a good idea to be as concise as you can be. Don't say a slight inclination of the cranium is as adequate as a spasmodic movement of one optic to an equine quadruped utterly devoid of individual capacity, when you could say, if you believe that brevity is the soul of wit, that a nod's as good as a wink to a blind horse.
Phil Jupiters, you challenge him.
Deviation?
Yes.
I don't understand a bloody word.
And certainly he was being devious because he wasn't illustrating brevity being the soul of wit.
Yeah, I was.
I think you were not illustrating brevity. And therefore, I give the benefit of the doubt to Phil Jupitus and say, Phil, there are 15 seconds still available. You will please talk, if you can, on brevity is the soul of wit, starting now.
Brevity is the soul of wit, said my grandmother as she sat knitting in her favourite armchair in the corner of our lounge, and how I would heed her words and remember that when I was exercising brevity as the soul of wit, at some point in the future, I would remember. Yes!
So, Phil Jupitus, you've broken your just-a-minute duck. And,
Not in front of people.
You got the point, of course, and you were speaking as the whistle went again. The extra point, you're equal with Giles in the lead, and we'd like you to take the next round. The subject now is willpower. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I suppose the producers of Just a Minute thought how funny to have the 22-stone member of the panel talk about willpower. For my ability to resist treats of various flavours has eluded me throughout my life, be they savoury or sweet. My
Clement, Freud, you challenged.
I thought, hello. And B, he hesitated.
He did hesitate a bit, and we'd love to have your hello. I'm sorry I can't give you a bonus point for hello, but it's just nice to have you with us. And there are 41 seconds available, and if you'd like to take willpower, starting now.
Willpower, when a young man, was the subject of the rhyme, Little Willie in his bright blue sashes fell in the fire and was burnt to ashes. Now the room is cold and chilly. No one wants to poke poor Willie.
And Graham, you challenge first.
Repetition of Willie.
Yes, it was. It's the first time that Willie's had a round of applause, actually.
No, it's not.
I think that last remark of yours deserves a bonus point, Graham, so we give it to you. Right.
Hooray!
And you've also got the subject, it's willpower, and you have 24 seconds starting now.
A Scotch egg. Oh, they do them lovely now, with actual Cumberland sausage. And the thing that fell out of a hen is organic. That's inside. It's been cooked. Now, that is so delicious, and yet it must be quite bad for you, I think, considering...
Giles' challenge.
This is a most charming culinary diversion.
Yes.
And it's interesting to hear about his diet, but we actually haven't got round to willpower, and a lot of seconds have passed.
I think he was expressing that the willpower he used in order to deny himself his culinary delights.
Oh, well, he hadn't got to that, had he?
Well, because you interrupted me.
I think he was getting there, Giles. We have to give benefit of the doubt on occasions. I give it to Graham on this occasion. And Graham, you have 9 seconds still. Willpower starting now.
Is willpower some sort of bardic cult in these parts? Do people wear T-shirts saying willpower and hang up...
So Graham Norton, speaking as the whistle when, gained that extra point. He's now gone to the lead ahead of Giles Brandis and Phil Jupitus and Clement Freud. And Graham, we're back with you to start. Would you take now the subject of blogging? 60 seconds, if you can, starting now.
Although blogging has some modern meanings, the word, of course, originally appeared in Shakespeare's play The Merry Wives of Windsor, when one of the characters says, "A blogging I must go." No one knows what it means. Odd how the word faded into history and now is reborn on the interweb. Bloggers are people who don't wash their hair and have no lives, but think that someone might want to read about it. I recently joined Facebook. That's a thing on the worldwide thing that spiders make. And...
Clement challenged.
Repetition of thing.
Oh, yes, you mentioned the thing.
Possibly.
It was very good.
Yes, very good, very well listened. So, Clement, you have a point. And you have a sour look from Graham, and you have blogging, and there are 21 seconds starting now.
21 seconds is about the right time for blogging a dead horse, which I have done frequently with considerable success, especially in Stratford-on-Avon, where the bard comes from. It's very odd that a piece of pork should give its name to the poet of a town to which huge numbers...
Giles, challenge.
The degree of deviation was almost pathological. I hesitated to interrupt in case the man was on medication.
Yeah, I have kind of agree with you, actually, but... so anyway, he's not on medication, but he did deviate. So you have a subject. Clement, challenge.
I am on medication.
Clement, I was trying to be tactful, but in view of the fact that you came back with that quick response and the audience enjoyed it, we give you a bonus point for that. And they always adore the underdog. Right, 1 second. You've got in with 1 second to go, Giles. You clever so-and-so. Blogging, starting now.
Blog off, guys!
So Giles Brandreth speaking as the whistle went, as the game moved forward. He's just 2 points ahead of Graham Norton and 2 or 3 ahead of the others. And Giles, it's back with you to start. The subject is Sunday lunch. So will you tell us something about Sunday lunch in just a minute, starting now?
After a really good traditional English Sunday lunch, one can forgive anyone, even family.
Graham's challenge.
One can do what?
Some of the lunch was still sort of around my teeth.
So I think that's deviation.
Yes, it was deviation, and also he was talking about after Sunday lunch, not the Sunday lunch itself.
Oh.
And that really bothered me.
It's going to be like that, is it?
Yes.
But I agree, it was deviation from English as we understand it. So, Graham, you have 55 seconds. You have Sunday lunch starting now.
Pity the vegetarian when it comes to the Sunday lunch. Who could sit a grilled tofu? Or maybe that's pronounced another way. I'm not quite sure. I've never ordered it out loud. I've just seen it on menus.
Clement, challenge.
I am sure.
Well,
Is it tofu?
Tofu.
But anyway,
Tofu.
it doesn't matter.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Graham, it doesn't matter which way we pronounce it. We knew what you meant. Clement interrupted you, and he got a very nice laugh, so we give him a bonus point for that. In fact, he's winning on bonus points at the moment. And you keep the subject of Sunday lunch, and you have 43 seconds starting now.
My Aunt Hannah was famous for her Sunday lunch as well, within her own home. Obviously, nobody else.
Poor Phil, challenge.
Deviation. She can't be that famous. I've never heard of her.
I made that very clear.
No, she was famous for her Sunday lunches in that area, wasn't she?
In her own home. I actually said that.
Yes.
You all heard me. I said it. In her own home. That's where she was famous.
I think within the rules of just a minute, it would be unfair to take it away, because she, in her own little circle, she was famous for her Sunday lunches.
Oh, no, Nicholas, you wield your power.
I would like to give you a bonus point because you haven't played the game before, but I think...
Stop giving me these mercy points. I don't need your pity, Parsons.
You certainly don't. You've got enough talent for all of us put together. Graham, no, you weren't deviating with the rules of just a minute. So we have 39 seconds, Sunday lunch starting now.
Inside my head, I'm skipping through fields. I'm so happy I'm still talking about Sunday lunch. I have so much to say about it. Roast potatoes. Hey, let's chat about them for a while. You can't do them with goose fat or bash them around in semolina, I'm told. I don't know. I don't care. I don't cook. Sunday lunch.
Giles, challenge.
So many I know in Graham's case, the word I is bound to occur all the time. But there were so many. It was one after the other.
Well, I know we do let 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 or 5 go, but there was a good half dozen there, weren't there?
Oh, must I lose the subject?
Sunday lunches with you, Giles, and 25 seconds available starting now.
Who does the work when creating the Sunday lunch? In our home, it is the microwave, because we actually line up in front of this machine with plates on which there's a pre-prepared...
Grand challenge.
Sorry, what was that? Couldn't quite make it out. Couldn't quite make it out.
It was a fumble and a stumble. It was a moment of humiliation.
So Graham's got in again, and he's got Sunday lunch. Well, he's got the subject of Sunday lunch, and the audience want to hear from his Sunday lunch. So 14 seconds, Graham, starting now.
Remarkably like Giles, we too line up plates of pre-prepared food to put in the microwave for Sunday lunch. That's what we do. Oh, 2 dudes.
Giles, challenge.
Oui, oui.
Oui, oui, yes.
And doo-doo.
And doo-doo.
We can't have too much wee-wee on this show, can we? There we are. 5 seconds available. Sunday lunch, Giles, starting now.
I always think it's important to begin with the right opening course when you're preparing the most marvellous Sunday lunch, and I try to start my meals.
Clement, challenge.
Repetition of I.
Yes. Hoisted on your own petard.
It's catching. It's catching.
It's catching, right.
Oh, that's
and
awful.
Clement, you cleverly got him with 1 second to go. Sunday lunch, Clement, starting now.
After taking medication.
So, at the end of that round, Clement Freud was speaking, so when gained an extra point, he's moved forward. He's 2 points behind our equal leaders, Graham Norton and Giles Brandreth. Phil Jupiter's our first-time player of the game. He's trained them just a little, and he begins the next round. The subject, Phil, is what money can't buy. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
The moon is one thing that money can't buy. In addition to other items that you would not be able to purchase, I would count my mother's love, for she gives it to me freely, of her own volition, and she's a fine woman to boot. What?
Clement, challenge. What is your challenge, Clement?
Deviation.
Why?
Booting your mother.
Yeah. Lovely challenge. We give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the humour, Clement, but it is a phrase you can use. Phil Jupiter's an incorrect challenge, and it's 40 seconds available still. What money can't buy, starting now.
What money can't buy must include several things that are not available in the shops. For if you go to those places where things can be bought, you must look around and search hither and thither for those...
Giles, you challenge for
Repetition for those.
Of those, that's right, yes. 25 seconds still available. What money can't buy, Giles, starting now.
Even the richest man in the world cannot buy back his past, as the Prince of Wales remarked to me not so long ago. It's a heartbreaking thing, but the one thing that you cannot buy...
Phil challenged.
Two things.
Oh!
2 things, yes.
Oh, yes?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, that's right, yes. Well, listen, Phil. You're getting the idea now. Carry on, 14 seconds. What money can't buy, Phil Jupiter's starting now.
What money can't buy must be available to those who have endless resources. Surely they would search all over...
Graham challenged.
Oh, repetition of search.
Yes, you searched before.
Oh, what? You got...
You were in a
can't
shop.
Repeat before...
You didn't realise this. If you already used the word and then you lose the subject and you get the subject back...
I have the memory of about 15 seconds, so... This is not an ideal game for me, I must
I'm sorry, Graham, can you be very generous here? Because Phil doesn't understand that rule, that you mustn't use the word if you used it before being challenged. So, Phil, you keep the subject. You get your point, of course, because you were interrupted. But give Graham a point, because it was a correct challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, he gets a point. And what money can't buy, Phil, and 5 seconds starting now. Clement, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, he was so in awe of what had happened, he couldn't get going again. So, Clement, a point to you, a correct challenge, and you have 4.5 seconds. What money can't buy, starting now.
What money can't buy is my new friend Phil Jupiter's mother's boots. It is extremely...
So, Clement Freud, speaking as the whistle went, has moved forward. He's now equal with Graham Norton and Giles Brandreth in the lead, and Phil Jupiter's is only 3 points behind them. It's a very even contest if you're interested in the points. Some people are, others interested in the quality of the show. Right. Clement, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is star quality. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
I can think of no person who deserves the quality of star more than Nicholas Parsons, the chairman... Creep.
Giles, your challenge.
Well, it was obviously a courteous hesitation. I think
but once he'd said it, he couldn't go any further.
He couldn't go any further. He realised that your name stops the house.
No, I thought it stuck in his throat, actually. So he did hesitate, Giles. So you have star quality, and you have 48 seconds starting now.
No, you have star quality.
Oh, thank you, Clement. You're so lovely. I didn't realise that at our older age we were kindling this little romance. I suppose it's the medication we both share. But star quality is now with Giles, starting now.
Barbara Streisand, Frank Sinatra, I've seen them all, known quite a number of them personally, but for me, star quality is epitomized in the small shape of Charlie Drake. To have seen that great entertainer in his prime. Hello, my darlings.
Phil Jupiter's challenge.
2 scenes.
2 scenes. Yes. You've seen him, you've seen them.
Well, listen, Nicholas, do all audiences go, "Ooh!" at the new boy when they get something right?
No. They were so impressed that you spotted it. Phil Jupiter, you have 35 seconds. Tell us something about star quality starting now.
Star quality is that is exhibited by those people who attract the attention of the general public in the performance of their duties as celebrities. Who can think of a greater celebrity than Elvis Presley, the man who exuded star quality from every fibre of his being, every thread of his... to every...
You went so well, but there were too many Ayres. Clement, you spotted it first. 14 seconds. Star quality starting now.
I think Elvis Presley is probably...
The names of the greats just sort of bring him to a standstill.
Yes, only got to say it right.
He seemed even more overwhelmed by Elvis than he was by you, Nicholas.
Well, I don't understand that, actually. Right, 11 seconds, Giles, on star quality, starting now.
There's a tingle that goes up one's spine when you see an artist of the calibre of the sort of individual that we are speaking of. Graham Norton, for me, does have this star quality.
Graham challenge.
Oh, shut up. It's just creepy and weird.
Graham, all I'm going to say is your complete modesty has gained you a bonus point because they enjoyed it. But he wasn't actually deviating, so Giles gets a point, and he keeps the subject for 2 seconds. Star quality starting now.
They don't understand their own strength.
So, Giles Brandreth was speaking as a whistle. Wayne gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's now in the lead, just ahead of Graham Norton, Clement Freud, and Phil Jupiter's in that order. And I have to tell you, we're moving into the final round. What a lovely audience you are. And Giles, we're back with you to start. Would you take a feast for the eyes? 60 seconds starting now.
Many years ago, in younger and happier days, I saw Nicholas Parsons in his underpants. This was indeed a feast for the eyes. I had never witnessed anything quite so extraordinary. Waxing on a mature man. It works. As well as that, there was oil all over his extraordinary silky skin.
Graham is challenging like mad. Yes, Graham.
Giles, there are dogs lying in front of the Aga listening to this.
Well, why shouldn't they have a good time too?
Oh.
I've never put oil on my body like that, and you never saw me like that anyway. But we did enjoy it. Well, I didn't enjoy it, but the audience did. And that's what I'm here for, to have fun at my expense. So, Graham, a correct challenge. 42 seconds on. It was deviation. That's not true, what you just said about me. You said you'd seen me in my underpants. You've never seen me in my underpants.
Oh, they're having a domestic. Take it home, boys. Take it home.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, tell you what I do, Giles. I'm always generous and fair on these occasions. Because they enjoyed what you said, though it was utterly incorrect and therefore deviates, we give you a bonus point. Graham gets a point for a correct challenge. He has 42 seconds, a feast for the eyes, starting now.
An organic, hard-boiled egg, covered in Cumberland sausage, with a light coating of breadcrumbs. Look at it on the plate. Oh, truly, it is a feast for the eye. It almost seems a pity to bite into it, because that will decimate the feast for the eye, because...
Giles challenged.
Well, decimation, of course, is dividing something into 10 parts with one bite. It's deviation. I'm sorry, if your body is not a feast for the eyes, why should his once bitten off boiled egg be?
No, technically that's the way we use that phrase, and Graham was using it in that sense, and he has 21 seconds for a feast for the eyes starting now.
Under the water, imagine a forest of seaweed waving, the sunlight coming through the wet stuff.
I hesitate to suggest it, but there was a hesitation. I
think there was a hesitation, yes.
No, all right.
Thank you, agreed.
It was a You have the subject back. A feast for the eyes. 14 seconds available, Giles, starting now.
When William George Bunter arrived at Greyfriars School, he said, "Yaroo! A feast for the eyes."
Clement challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
Giles didn't press his buzzer. He has been pressing it at regular intervals for the last 25 seconds.
And that's right, yes. You're absolutely right.
Good challenge.
The only difference is his medication is obviously working. But what is your challenge within the rules of Just a Minute, Clement?
Deviation.
No.
Okay, try devolution.
You try anything you like, Clement.
Education.
But I
it's
must
decimation
be fair.
I want.
Yes, sir. I must be fair within the rules of Just a Minute, but I know it was a very good try, and the audience enjoyed your interruption, so I will give you those bonus points that you love having. Giles was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. He has feast for the eyes. 8 seconds, starting now.
Oh, crikey, Mr. Quelch!
Graham challenged.
Oh, repetition of O.
Oh. Did you rule the time before?
Yes, you did say that before when you were talking about me, actually. Graham, you have the correct challenge. You have 6 seconds. A feast for the eyes, starting now.
A feast for the eyes could be a nice bouquet of flowers. I don't think I've mentioned that before.
Well, Graham Norton, speaking as a whistle wind, gained that extra point. It's a very fair situation at the end of the show, because Phil Jupiters, who hasn't played before, he finished in a magnificent 4th place, and he was only a few points behind the other 3, Clement Freud, Graham Norton, and Giles Brandreth. So, Giles, by 1 point ahead, we say that you are the winner this week.
Well, that's very good.
So, it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Phil Jupiters, Clement Freud, Giles Brandreth and Graham Norton. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle magnificently this week. And also we thank our producer, Talusha Galani. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience in this magnificent courtyard theatre in Stratford-on-Avon for cheering us on our way. Please tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Yep. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it is my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners around the world, but also to welcome to this programme this week 4 brilliant, talented comedy performers who once more are going to try and display their comic talent, their wit, and their verbal ingenuity as they improvise on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Janey Clare, and seated on my left, Julian Clary and Giles Brandreth. Please welcome all 4 of them. Seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the White Rock Theatre in Hastings. And we're going to have a lot of fun as we start the show. And Paul, it's, I think, your turn to begin. So the subject now is why television will never catch on. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
John Logie Baird, one of the inventors of television, used to walk along the cliffs here at Hastings. He'd moved to this area to recover from tuberculosis, and he enjoyed the sea air. He came up with this idea of television sometime in the early 1920s.
Giles challenge.
I'm afraid he didn't come up with the idea. Paul was correct. I mean, this is deviation, is what I'm challenging on, when he said he was one of the pioneers.
Oh, yes.
I thought how clever he was. But then later, he foolishly said he came up with this idea. The idea, in fact, I think, was come up with by an American called Philo Farnworth, as I recall.
Giles, put it in your next book. He did establish at the beginning that he was one of the pioneers.
Yes, and then he deviated from the truth. Having established the truth, he went off it. But that's fine. Fine, if you don't want the truth, this is that sort of program. It doesn't matter. That's fine. That's fine.
There are occasions when
I mean, you know, the mission to explain is no longer part and parcel of the Radio 4 remit. That's fine.
Right. So I tell you what we do, Giles, because the audience enjoyed your interruption, we give you a point for that.
Oh.
But Paul was interrupted, so he gets the point, keeps the subject, and he still has 47 seconds. Why television will never catch on, starting now.
Who knows, we may come to see the end of television now that you're able to pick up pictures on mobile phones, and somehow we've managed to bring this marvellous inventive? That's not a word.
Julian, you challenge.
Sadly, hesitation.
Yes, because we interpret that as hesitation. Right, Julian, tell us something now about why television will never catch on. 37 seconds, starting now.
Television will never catch on because it's very boring compared to radio, and when you switch it on, there's lots of homosexuals there prancing about on your screen. It's not my idea of a good night in. So, I think radio is the way forward, and I've repeated it.
Janey, challenge.
He said radio twice.
Yes, you did say radio twice.
know.
Janey, you've got in on the subject of why television will never catch on. There are 24 seconds available, starting now.
May I beg to differ? Telly's caught on in my house. I love the thing. You know, last night I went to see something National Theatre. Very good. Cost 60 quid for 2 tickets. Came home, thought this is much cheaper. Sat in front of the box watching Big Brother. Value for money, if you ask me. I've got 4 tellies, I'm very proud to say. When I wake up in the morning...
Paul challenge.
No, I'm wrong. So I thought it was a repetition of telly, but it was telly and tellies, wasn't it?
Yes,
so,
right.
Singular and plural.
Yes.
So Janey has another point for an incorrect challenge and 4 seconds on why television will never catch on, starting now.
I like to have different drinks with different television programmes, for example.
Yes. No! Yes. Paul, you were first.
Repetition of different.
Yeah. Different drinks with different television programmes.
Yeah. Same, innit?
2 seconds, Paul. Why television will never catch on, starting now.
If you turn on your
Oh, Janey, challenge.
Turn.
It's sad watching a human being crumble in front of your eyes.
So, Paul, you have 1 second on why television will never catch on, starting now.
1956 was an extremely good year.
So Paul was speaking then as the whistle went with an extra point, another in the round. He's now moved forward just ahead of Giles and Julian and Janey. Julian, oh, what a lovely subject. Misdemeanours. Tell us something about misdemeanours in this game, starting now.
When I was in Sydney, I went to a gentleman's club, and who should be the drag act but a Miss Demeanours, along with Maud Boat. The thing that annoyed me about Miss Demeanours was that she was doing my act. She came out and she said...
Charles Challenge.
A repetition of act.
Oh, yes.
So when you went desperate.
You mentioned she was doing an act and she was doing my act. Giles, a correct challenge, 48 seconds. Tell us something about misdemeanours, starting now.
30 years ago, I was on a committee set up to investigate the scourge of pornography in our society, and I still have the raincoat I bought at the time. We were a strange group, a bishop, an archbishop, a rabbi, and Cliff Richard.
That's got to be the beginning of a joke. All go into a pub.
No, Janey challenged her.
I was wrong. I'd like to apologise, Giles. I think bishop and archbishop are 2 different words. Yes, I do apologise, Giles.
You didn't apologise, no. We love your keenness. But
Desperation it is,
happens
actually.
is that Giles gets a point for an incorrect challenge. 35 seconds, misdemeanours, starting now.
We went over to Copenhagen to reap the alien porn, and there in the capital of Denmark we found misdemeanours.
Janey's challenge.
Again, I'd like to apologise to Giles. I came in too early. And I thought he was deviating because I hadn't heard anything about misdemeanours, really.
I saw you shifted uncomfortably in your seat when you said that,
what
yes.
he was going to tell us next.
Well, he'll hear, because I know. I was interviewing him shortly after that on another programme I did. But carry on.
You do other programmes?
You wicked so-and-so.
Surely.
Yes, surely. And not only the ones you know about, some which were less known. It was called Look Who's Talking.
Oh.
And it was on Radio 4, and we used to have a chat show about all kinds of things in the news, and Giles came on once to talk about this report which he'd done, and his visit to Copenhagen, and he was very erudite and very amusing, and quite explicit as well. So,
So we won't challenge then?
No, incorrect challenge. 30 seconds, misdemeanours starting now.
Misdemeanours on that particular occasion adopted the costume of a milkmaid and said she would do for us anything that we wished. And she got out this extraordinary bucket and produced these false udders. This was the moment at which Nicholas became quite nervous, indeed began to perspire, and the slight toupee that he was wearing slipped forward on his head. And his neck began to flush in a most extraordinary way that I hadn't seen on a man of his years
Julian
before.
challenge.
To extraordinaries.
Two extraordinaries, yes. I'm surprised nobody had him for the deviation of the toupee on my head, because such a thing has never existed on my scalp.
I didn't say it was on your head.
Nicholas, that surely is a wig. Nobody would have their hair cut like that.
Come round and pull it. Julian, you had a correct challenge. You have 8 seconds. You have misdemeanours starting now.
Come round here and pull this. When you think about it, just a minute is really a game of misdemeanours. There must be no repetition, deviation, or hesitation.
So Julian was again speaking as the whistle went, and with the points that he got then and the ones that Giles got in that round, they both moved forward. They're both equal in first place, one ahead of Paul Merton, and then comes Jenny Eclair. And Jenny, will you begin the next round? The subject now, breaking records. 60 seconds, starting now.
There are many ways to break records. You can be the fattest, thinnest, shortest, tallest, smallest.
Paul challenge.
You can't be all of those things, surely. You can't be the fattest, thinnest, tallest, shortest person that ever lived. I mean, it's just...
It's a variety of people that would end up in the Guinness Book of Records. I wasn't allowed to finish my sentence.
Paul, we enjoyed your interruption.
Did we?
No, she didn't make it clear.
No, I didn't think she did either.
But I understood.
Did you?
Yes, I definitely understood. She meant that you don't have to be that all at the same time. There were individually different records that were going. So give Paul a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. Jenny gets a point because she was interrupted.
Yes!
And she keeps the subject with 55 seconds to go, Jenny. Breaking records starting now.
All these people may gain entry into the Guinness Book of Records. How I adored looking at that Chinese lady with the long curly talons reaching the floor. What fun. Page 53, a bald dog. Oh, my goodness.
Giles challenged.
I collected the Guinness Book of Records. The animal records always appeared at the back of the book.
In my head, I can see a picture of a bald dog on page 54.
Yes.
I would like someone now to bring out a Guinness Book of Records and prove me wrong.
Here we are. I've got one here. Page 54, a picture of the moon rocket.
No. Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to be too pedantic about things. I don't think it matters really in this game whether it was the front or the back of the book. I'm going to be generous and give the benefit of the doubt to Jenny. So, Jenny, you continue on bald records. breaking records. 36 seconds starting now.
Personally, I like breaking records by smashing vinyl. Do you remember on the circuit years ago, there used to be a fellow called...
Paul challenge.
It's very difficult to smash vinyl. You can smash the old 78s because they were made of shellac, but vinyl, you can't really smash
No,
it.
you can't really smash vinyl.
But do you remember that fellow called Woody Bot Muddin? He used to nail records to a wooden post and then smash them with a hammer.
They
you
were,
do! I haven't made it all up in my head.
They weren't vinyl, they were 78s.
It was definitely 78s you can smash, and even the little 45s you can smash. I gave the benefit of the doubt to you last time, Jenny, so this time I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Paul, and he has a point for a correct challenge, and he has 32 seconds, breaking records, Paul, starting now.
When the Beatles first started their recording career back in 1962, they initially were seen as just a four-piece band from Liverpool who may have a couple of hit records and would shortly disappear. But the thing that Paul McCartney and John Lennon did as the chief songwriters of that group was to compose their own tunes. This hadn't been done done before by a popular beat combo. They used to rely on professional songwriters who used to hang around Denmark Street in London and come up to you and say, "Here, want a ballad?" And that was how it used to work. But those four pop...
Julian, you challenged.
A repetition of four.
And there was...
Almost.
Almost.
That's
and
one
you
word.
got in with 2 seconds to go, Julian. But it was a correct challenge. A point to Julian. 2 seconds. Breaking records, Julian, starting now.
I hold the Savoy for swallowing the most Savoys.
Paul, you did manage to challenge before the whistle. What was it?
Yeah, well, he meant to say I hold the record for eating the most Savoys, but said I hold the Savoy for... It's almost like he's got a one-track mind.
Yeah, something was coming up from his unconscious there, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You don't know what I'm doing under the table.
I know exactly what you're doing. It's who, I don't know.
Well, I mean, within the rules of Just a Minute, you did mention Savoy twice. It's very interesting.
Deviations,
well, one was battered.
I tell you what we'll do.
What?
We'll give you a point because it was a correct challenge, Paul, and leave the subject with Julian with half a second to go on breaking records starting now.
I received my prize when I went to Buckingham...
So Julian was again speaking as the whistle went, and with the points that he got then, he's in second place alongside Janey and Claire. Giles is one behind them, and Paul's out in the lead. And Giles, your turn to begin. And the subject we've got now is pulling rank. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Pulling rank is something that happens a great deal at the House of Commons, where I was a member. In the dining room, in fact, the Conservative MPs sit at one end, and at the other you will find the Labour members. And there, what happens, of course, the Liberal Democrats, they wait at table.
Julian challenged.
Hesitation.
Absolutely. He looked at me and he knows I'm a good Liberal Democrat, and so he hesitation, 46 seconds. Julian, pulling rank starting now.
Pulling rank, there but for a small typographical error, would be the story of my life. I don't know much about this subject. I'm not a competitive kind of person, but I did know...
Paul challenged.
He's extremely competitive. Deviation.
Give me an example of how competitive I am.
Well, the last time we played this, you came to the joint leader at the end of the programme.
That's just an accident.
I think there's an element of competitiveness within your nature, but I disagree with the challenge. And you keep the subject, and you have 36 seconds on pulling rank, starting now.
Backstage, before we came on for this old nonsense that we're doing for you this evening, Paul said to me, age before beauty. That's an example of pulling rank. I said, go on then, after you, and he hobbled down the corridor onto the stage, tripped over a bit of lino.
Janey challenged.
Stage twice.
Yes, he did say stage twice, yes.
Very true.
So, Janey, you've got pulling rank, and you have 22 seconds, starting now.
It's very difficult to pull rank when one has no rank to pull. A funny thing happened to me the other day, though. Driving through Chelsea, I had to let someone go before me because he pulled rank. It was Hugh Grant. We were both driving cars in the opposite directions. He had the posher car.
Paul challenged.
We were both driving cars in the opposite directions.
I'm doing a mime now, like that.
Radio.
Like that, about...
Radio.
Like that.
Where are the cameras?
I don't know.
Deviation. You can't, they're both driving in single directions. They can't both be driving in different directions.
I was heading towards the King's Road and he was heading away from the King's Road, different directions.
I think they were both driving in different directions.
Yes.
All right.
The thing is, it's too late now. You could have had it for a repetition of driving, but you didn't.
No, I didn't know.
Or cars.
No.
Right. All right. So, Janey, you have the subject still. 5 seconds, pulling rank, starting now.
The famous bloke.
Paul challenged.
Repetition of driving and cars.
No, I did establish before she started again, you can't have that challenge now.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did say that.
Got to laugh, though, didn't it?
You got to laugh. So you get a point because you were interrupted. 5 seconds, pulling rank, starting now.
I pulled my automobile over to the side so that...
So Janey and Claire got a lot of points in that round. She was pulling everything out and making it all work. And only 1 point separates all of them in different directions. Julian, we'd like you to take the next round. One in the eye. I think the audience have got the reference immediately. Very good subject for Hastings. But will you talk on the subject, Julian? 60 seconds starting now.
One in the eye.
That was hesitation.
It was hesitation,
wasn't it?
Well, I was just thanking God. I was saying a little prayer.
Yes, I mean, I think one has to do it because you did. It's 1.5 seconds before you started, and normally people do begin more accurate. So, Paul, I have to be fair with the rules of just a minute and say that was the correct challenge. So you have one in the eye, and there are 58.5 seconds starting now.
King Harold woke up on the morning of the battle in 1066 and thought to himself, you know, I think my eyesight's getting better. And then he headed out towards a conflict, and somebody said, what's that? He looked up and an arrow pierced the back of his retina, and from then on he was unable to wear a proper pair of glasses. One in the eye can also be used as a term where you say to somebody, I got you one in the eye. Now, what exactly does that mean? Let me take you back to the early days of pugilism. When Nicholas Parsons was fighting in 1787, under the name of the Battling Wino, he was perhaps one of the finest boxers this country ever produced. Now, to look at him, you would think to yourself, I wonder what happened to that deck chair, because somebody there is a coat that's been cut out of the back of it.
So, Julian, you challenged.
Hesitation. Sort of fell over his words, did he not?
Well, it was
I don't think so, but after what he said, I think...
it's deviation.
Deviation, yes.
It wasn't gallant either.
My jacket didn't come from a deck chair.
No.
no, Oxfam.
21 seconds, Julian. One in the eye, starting now.
As we've heard, there was a bit of a ruck around these parts in 1066, somewhere near here, and some chap...
Giles challenged.
Repetition of 1066.
Well, it doesn't matter. He hasn't said it in this round, and he hasn't said it at all.
I thought he said it earlier.
No, he didn't speak.
Oh.
He didn't speak. He started. He was challenged for hesitation.
Paul, I heard Paul. I've lost another point. That's fine.
You haven't lost a point. Giles, I know you haven't lost
Julian's
a point.
got a point. Julian's
gained a point.
That's nice. That's lovely. That's great. That's perfect. I'm very, very pleased.
I think you should take your tablets before you come on.
That's fine.
Julian, 15 seconds, one in the eye, starting now.
Anyone got a stun gun? It was awful. And apparently I've been hypnotised and I went back in time and I was at that battle. I was just a lowly soldier. Didn't have a knife or a stick or anything. I had a broom and I went at the enemy, don't know who they were, like there was no tomorrow, and
So Julian, with points in the round and one for Speaker's whistle went, has leapt forward. All very close. And Jenny, it's back with you to begin. And the subject now, a great subject for you, I'm sure, a bodice ripper. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
A Bodice Ripper is one of those books wherein young wenches with milky breasts heaving get ravished every 10 minutes by sulky brutes, usually with scars on their faces. Catherine Cookson, she a local gal, used to write Bodice Rippers. Also, they were called clog and shawl novellas. I don't read this sort of muck because I am an intellectual genius. Blue stocking.
Giles, you challenged.
Deviation. She's not a blue stocking, and how is she so familiar with this work if she doesn't read any of it? I've never known a more accurate and indeed more vivid account of what appears in a bodice ripper than that given to us just now by Jenny. It was extraordinary. It brought the whole thing to life. There's an erotic charge in the theatre.
I know, but she was alive. But you're challenging.
Deviation, she just said she never reads these things. It's evident that she does.
She might have watched it on television.
No.
I'll tell you what I've done, Giles.
Yeah.
OK, you want the truth of this?
Yeah.
I read for an old blind lady.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And every week she asks me to go to the library and she says to me in her frail little voice, Jenny, could you get me a bodice ripper? And I say, Enid.
Please,
you're proving my point. You do read these things on a regular basis, once a week. It's part of your commitment to charity. It's excellent.
So I think I deserve an extra point for that.
No, you've got the subject, and you have 29 seconds. A body stripper still with you, Jenny, starting now.
I wish I had the sort of bosom that could rip fabric. Unfortunately, I've got one of those mean, British, measly old woman bosoms.
Charles Challenge.
This is truly deviation.
You mean she's well upholstered?
She has got beautiful breasts.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
They're not going to rent fabric, let's face it, Giles.
Definitely, Giles, you have the subject. Bodice rippers with you, 22 seconds starting now.
I'm totally against bodice rippers, sometimes known as sweet savagery. No, it's revolting that one actually tries to take advantage of women within the pages of a book, describing them in these lurid and disgusting
Giles,
terms.
Julian challenge.
Hesitation.
There was a hesitation as you stumbled over your word then, Giles. So,
that's fine.
Julian, you tell us something about bodice ripper. 11 seconds starting now.
I've never read a bodice ripper, but I have read a trouser ripper.
Repetition of read. I haven't read, but I have read.
Yes, Paul, well listened. And you have 8 seconds. A bodice ripper starting now.
If you can imagine the scene, Victorian London, the gaslights are playing merrily about in the street, and suddenly round the corner comes a horse and cart.
So Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went. He's moved forward into the lead alongside Janey Clare, but they're only 1 point ahead of Julian Clary and Giles Brandreth in that order. And Giles, would you take the next round or start it? I mean, words borrowed from the French. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I recall President George Bush saying that the problem with the French is that they have no word for entrepreneur. The English language is very much indebted to the French because, in fact, things like pas de deux, meaning father of two, or even coup de grâce, interpreted as mow the lawn, esprit de corps, I suppose, could be an embalming fluid. It's extraordinary, the range of vocabulary if one goes to that country across the Channel. I myself was educated at the Lycée Français de Londres, and consequently, having borrowed from the French, I've returned it because as the years have gone by, I've begun to forget the words that I used to know, like ballet, which of course comes from the French, means a small dance, or even zigzag, which also comes from the French language.
Paul Town.
Repetition of comes from.
Comes from. Because it was so interesting.
That's fine.
A justified round of applause, Giles, but Paul had a correct challenge. 11 seconds. Words borrowed from the French. Paul, starting now.
This is not the easiest subject for me to speak about because I didn't do French at school. I was unfortunately put in the metalwork class. But if we are to look at those magnificent neighbours of...
So I'll give you the situation as we move into the final round. Paul was again speaking as a whistle win, gained that extra point. He's now 1 ahead of Janey, who's 1 ahead of Julian, who's 1 ahead of Giles, in that order.
Yeah, well done, everybody.
It almost deserves a bonus point, doesn't it? Right, he's trailing a little, so give him that extra point. Give Giles another point. Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is, if I had a time machine. Strange subject, 60 seconds, starting now.
If I had a time machine, I would undoubtedly travel into the future. There's not much point in going back to the past. We know what's happened. But indeed, the thing that is ahead of us, what will it be like in the year 2099? Will Just a Minute still be on the air? Probably it will be somewhere or other, broadcast in this magnificent building that we are now. And that transmission will be heard on the World Service and also on the internet and everywhere else. If I was to travel into...
Julian challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was a hesitation there, Paul. Yes, he was wondering where he should go next.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't really go very far, did I, really?
You travelled tonight. I thought you were going to say your usual thing, and Nicholas Parsons will still be doing it in 2099.
Oh, no.
32 seconds available, Julian. If I had a time machine, starting now.
If I had a time machine, I'd travel back to when this theatre was last decorated and have a word with the man who chose the What did he think of that? It's an outrage. I'll describe it for the listener. They're kind of grey with red splodges, and the carpet's another matter. I suspect this was done in the 60s and marijuana was involved. If you know what I'm saying. Around these parts, it may have came on a little ship across the water, bobbing into the bay, and the architect, which I've already said once, but no one's done anything about it.
Could I have a word?
Yes.
On behalf of the Hastings Tourism Board.
Oh, yes, carry on.
Are you being paid by them?
Well, no, it's a beautiful theatre. It's exquisite.
I was talking about the curtains.
That won't get you any points in just a minute. What is your challenge when the rules are just a minute?
I have no challenge. I'm just on the side of the losers here, the poor saps who have to come to this theatre week in, week out. There's appalling decor that's just been so vividly described. No, there was hesitation.
No, there wasn't. He repeated something.
Yes, he did. He repeated something.
Judge, you've been so sharp all the way through, but you missed that. He actually said what he'd repeated.
Yes, he did.
But you didn't challenge him.
Yeah, but I am going to be last in this programme if it kills me. And I'm at the moment tied bottom, so he needs another point.
You've got a tied bottom?
Right, Julian. Incorrect challenge. So you have 3 seconds on if I had a time machine starting now.
If I had a time machine, I'd travel into the future and find that this theatre was looking magnificent.
Well, let me give you the final score. On this occasion, Giles finished just in third place. Only just.
Is that bottom, though?
Yeah, but it's not really bottom. I mean, it was a magnificent, brilliant third place.
Oh, the last shall be first.
And Janey was in a superb second place. But she was only 2 points behind Paul Merton and Julian Clarier, equal together in first place. So we say they are the winners jointly this week. Thank you. We do hope you enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful and excellent players of the game: Paul Merton, Janey Clare, Giles Brandreth and Julian Clary. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle with great aplomb. We thank our producer, Toulusha Galani. We're indebted to Ian Messer, who created this amazing game, and we're grateful to this lovely audience here in Hastings at the White Rock Theatre, who've cheered us on our way of magnificent games. Thank you. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, goodbye. Tune in, listeners, the next time we play Just a Minute.